arguably the most famous racetrack in the world. It is 2.5 miles in length, and it is the home to one of the fastest races in the world. It is the Indianapolis 500. It is live here on RaceSpotTV, on VCO, and broadcast in part live from Simply Race Milton Keynes. This is the track that is on the corner of 16th Street and Georgetown. Live timing and scoring is available. Visit RaceSpot.wtf/Indy. My name's Will Vinson, joined in Milton Keynes by Connery Maddock, and all the way over in California, it is Arjuna Kankapati. And Arjuna, this is arguably the prelude to one of the biggest races in all of sim racing. You talked about that in BCO's magazine, but this is the fixed version of the Indianapolis 500. Very different to what we've got in a week's time when we go to the open part.
It's something that we started in 2020, and I love it. There's something about letting the drivers out with the same setup. The only thing that they've got to adjust is in-car tools. It's about adaptability and surviving for 500 miles here at the Speedway, and of course, it all builds up to the 13th running of the iRacing Indianapolis 500.
Indeed it does. So this is going to be the third edition of the Fix, and over the years we've had the rookie version of the iRacing Indy 500, we've had the Fix version. This is the fourth, and it's the 4-lap average that determines the qualifying field. 33 drivers, of course, that legendary number at Indianapolis. In 2020, we had 8 cautions, just 4 in 2021. So you're looking at a race time between about 2 hours 30 and about 3 hours 15. The fuel window, well, that is 31 to 33 laps in 2020. This race was won by Sage Karam. In 2021, it was won by Philip Kraus. And again, Sage Karam, he's run at the Brickyard Connery so many times. And this race, it's stacked. It's got so many drivers. And the thing is, the margin to make it into this race, we are talking 1,000ths of a second.
And it's largely based off of the driver's skill as well. Of course, the Open Indy 500 is just like that in its qualifying procedure as well. You know, trying to build like just the most pristine setup, and then you actually have to go and execute it in that sense. But in this, the setup's obviously all the same. Like Arjuna said, the only adjustments that these guys have are in the car. So it's a lot more down to the specific driver. It doesn't matter with regards to setups, whether one setup's better on tire wear, whether another setup's better on the better on the 1-lap pace. Everyone has the exact same thing. So it's all going to be drivers' styles going up against each other and their right decisions.
Yeah, indeed. So, in Arjuna, very quickly, it's worth noting that some people call qualifying for either the Fix or the Open iRacing Indy 500 is the toughest challenge that there is, because we are talking millimeters between making it and not.
It's very much the most difficult thing. You talk to someone like Zach Campbell, who's won races at the World Championship level. The most nervous he's felt on the grid for the open wheel 500-mile race. The margins here are so fine. The speed is so significant. You trim out the downforce, you push to the limit, you risk it all for the biscuit.
Indeed, so. So we are very close to the start of the race. We've got about 4 minutes remaining of practice. Of course, we've got all those pre-race festivities to come as well. There's a look then at the track, and you think about it, Arjuna, it looks like 4 rounded corners on a rectangle, but it's anything but that. You've got the shadows down at turn number 1, the tightness of turn 2, that kind of weird looseness over the old bump in turn number 3 and turn 4. Well, that is where things can always be lost.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's going to be most interesting today is, I think this IR18, it's a great road course car, maybe not so great as an oval car. It produces a type of race that requires the drivers to be very, very careful with how they manage dirty air. That's going to be the name of the game here today.
And with that, folks, we are going to take a moment to pause the playing of the American National Anthem.
We are delighted to be back in Speedway, Indiana, and it's time to bring on Jim Nabors to sing Back Home Again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Our good friend, Mr. Jim Nabors, who would always be with us at the Speedway in India. And that's the joy of doing a sim racing event. We still get to bring you Jim Nabors every single year. We've actually done so since we started doing this iRacing Indy 500 coverage on RaceSpotTV. Well, we've got a little bit. We've not got long before we go to the green flag, but we have ourselves just a couple of moments. And again, at this stage, Connery, these drivers, they got to do it, and I just saw a number of drivers do it correctly. Practice the key elements, the pit in, the pit out. You've got to get that right, because you don't have to worry about weight jackets, anti-roll bars, all this sorts of stuff, but you got to nail the basics. If you don't nail the basics, you're gonna lose out.
It's always good to just get a refresher in your head, because in these sorts of high-pressure situations, you sometimes just forget about the very basics. You would also go over your plan of action for the opening portion of the race. You know, if you have that with your team, or if you come up with it by yourself as well, just a refresher of that will get your mind in the right place as we are going to have the starting grid.
Indeed so. So let's have a look then at your starting grid for this, the 2022 iRacing Fixed Indianapolis 500. And it's Christopher DeMario from Team I5G on pole position, and Adrian Pinheiro alongside him on the front row of the grid. Robert Malexa in third place, Rodrigo Franzoni in fourth, then Johan Harf in fifth place, and Alexis Newsom in P number 6. P7, you got Casey Kerwin and P8, Hugo Olsen. Row number 5, you got Alessandro Di Tullio and Primislav Limnek. And in row number 6, you got Henry Bennett and Jacob Oster. Row number 7 is Jose Soria and Jason Brophy. Row number 8, you got Florian Lebige and Brandon Trost. Row number 9 is Lucas Prada and Michael Romandez. And then row number 10, Rafael Acuista and Alessandro Pico. Row number 11, Eduardo Fernandez Morales and Bruno Miranda. Row number 13. So number 12, we've got Fernando Antonio Bisquet and Brendan Lichtenberg. Row number 13, Alexander Van der Sunt and Theobald Kosovo. Row 17, you got Pedro Sanchez Albert and Pablo Diaz Frances. Then you got Sam Michaels in 29th, Mehdi Al-Fati in P number 30. Rounding out your field, Jacob Reed, Andrew Roos, and Andrew Wood are your 33 drivers. So, that is the grid. The drivers are behind the iRacing pace car, Arjuna. It's that moment, the calm before the storm. We've seen these races go green for 100, 120 laps. We've also seen carnage on lap number 1. What do you have to do to survive?
Well, survive. It's as simple as that. I think we're going to see in the mid-pack plenty of action. Up front, we're not expecting too much. Very difficult to pass a third-on line back. SWAT drafting is so prevalent here at Indy, but once we get to about lap 20 of the fuel window, the car becomes very pushy loose. Drivers expecting not to be able to swap from there, so it's all about minding your time and then executing on pit road. So difficult to do. Stripped of downforce to slow your car into the box and slow yourself into the lane.
Track conditions right now, 55 degrees Celsius on track. That's 25.6 degrees Celsius in the air. We got 55% humidity. We pretty much have no cloud in the skies, and we only have a light gust of wind. Welcome then to the third annual iRacing FIXED Indianapolis 500. We're joined by partners in VCO and Milton Keynes at Simply Race, and we're ready for the green flag here. We've got the field coming to the green, Christopher Demerit on the inside, Andrew Pinero on the outside. 200 laps of racing. Well, let's start now. Good start by Demerit. You got Robert Mauska up into second place. In fact, Mauska's actually going to look for the race lead as they come down into turn 3 for the first time. So Demerit will not lead lap number 1, but that's not important. The way the draft works here, as Arjuna was just saying, you're going to swap your positions. That's how you actually go faster than anything else. So Malexa has the lead for this first lap. Demerit, though, look at that, right alongside him. We'll take the inside line down into turn number 1 of lap number 2. Pianiero in 3rd place, Ranzoni in 4th, and Newsom in P5. The key thing is, Connery, everyone survived lap number 1.
Yep, so no first lap caution here. Everyone just trying to get themselves off and away in the most comfortable way possible. The last thing you want in this situation is to, a couple of laps in, go out in a massive, massive wreck. But it looks like everyone's got themselves largely single-filed out here at Indianapolis for the first couple of laps of the FIXED Indy 500. So once we get ourselves a good handful of laps under our belts, 10, maybe even 15 laps, then we can start thinking about more long-run situations once we get past this crucial phase of the race where everyone's so close together.
Yeah, I mean, I've got those famous words. I've got rhythm, I've got momentum, and I've got fuel saving, Arjuna. Each of them, in fact, we can add a 4th in on this fixed one. It's called tyre saving a bit as well. We've got a little bit of side-by-side action. That is between Chilio and Bennett. P number 11 on track, but rhythm, momentum are key. Fuel saving, if you can be the difference in case someone crashes coming out of pit road, and tyre saving, well, that's useful at this track.
Yeah, and going to, you know, the fuel saving, the addition of fuel maps a couple of seasons ago here on iRacing, well, they were always there, but they're now much more useful in the car. So bouncing between maps 1 and 5 will save you some fuel in these green flag runs. Of course, when you go to cautions, you switch it to map 8, you make sure you're saving as much as possible. That's going to be very crucial here today.
So Demerit then, we've already got 4 laps of this race pretty much scored complete. We got, oh, caution. Caution number 1 then of the day is out. And it looks as though it's towards the rear of the field anyway. And it's Lucas Prada, the number 27 car from Central Eastern Europe. Looks as though that is a solo spin down at turn number 1. We're going to get a replay then up for you now. And he was working underneath, and he just washes up completely, Arjun. And that's what happens when the air gets taken away from you down at turn number 1. First victim of the wall on the outside of 1.
It's so important to stay on top of your tools rather than being reactive, making sure the car is where you want it to be. You can see he dives down low, thinking the car goes up high is a good opportunity for him to sneak on by, gets the face full of dirty air, slides up into the wall, caution out in the early stages of the race.
And I love that proactive versus reactive, because a track like this, as soon as you're in the grey, Connery, it's too late. As soon as you start brushing up at turn number 1, you either have to slam on the brakes or you are going to make contact with that outside wall.
Yeah, it is very, very tough lesson to learn, and I figure every single IndyCar driver has had something like that happen to them, if not once, but many, many, many times over the course of their career, and it can bite you perhaps when you least expect it as well. You carry just a little bit too much speed into the corner, your angle's not quite right, you're a little bit too high, and all of a sudden you have to try and recover it, and like you said, it's usually lift way out the front or try and slam on the anchors, try and get it slowed down so that you just can't, that you just miss that wall by the slimmest of margins, but then you have the issue of losing a ton of momentum and a ton of spots as a result of a little problem like that.
Yeah, I'm just having a look through my field. I'm just wondering if anyone's actually decided to pit at the start of this one, because 5 laps in, of course, is very early. In fact, we're back to green flag racing.
Oh, no.
No, we're not. No, that's still the caution. I mean, there's a safety car right there. There are a couple of people one coming on towards pit road, a number coming in behind, and then they all dance. They get to the attenuator. Some come in, some stay out, and Arjuna, it's only 5 laps in, and it is time for another one of the bingo card, the count back. The fuel that you can save if you do that pit stop early now can really help you at the end of the race. If you're outside the top 15, it's worth taking the risk right now.
Yeah, and I'm a bit surprised that more people haven't pitted. We're looking at, I think it was 7 or 8 cars at most that have rolled themselves onto pit lane, so I'm a bit surprised. Andrew Wood should be noted. He's seemingly, with an 18-second stop, had some damage to his car as well. He might have smacked the wall by himself in an incident we didn't see. We only, of course, saw what happened to Lucas Prada.
Yep, so early doors here, of course, in this 200-lap race, 800 corners. You know, it ain't much. Compare that to racing at the Nordschleife, they say. But you know what? These cars, they'll do each of those corners at speeds above 210 miles an hour. So 6 laps of 200 are going to be scored complete under caution. And the thing is interesting here, when you're running under caution, on one hand, you get the chance to just calm yourself down. But then you got to get yourself back up into the rhythm. You think about the adrenaline, and we're talking esports versus professional sports here, Connery. The adrenaline, the feelings that you have is always, and there's a replay up on your screen, it's always the adrenaline, the heart rate, it all goes up exactly the same compared to a normal race car. That's come down after the first couple of laps. Now you've got to get that adrenaline, get yourself focused once again for this first restart. That first restart is always more damaging and more worrisome than the actual start of the race.
You can look at it in one of a few ways. You can look at it as a chance, like you said, for the drivers to calm their nerves and get themselves focused on this next restart. However, you can look at it the other way. You can just think, okay, maybe that adds a little bit more pressure to the situation. Maybe we'll get a string of cautions in the early running here, which will really put everyone off of their kilter. So, yeah, there's multiple routes that this can go down. I'm hoping that we can get ourselves a good green flag run in just to make sure that we can perhaps get ourselves a little bit of a strategic element in this race. But you can see we got a live view of our wonderful venue.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what you can see bottom right-hand corner on your screen is not a driver in this FIXED iRacing Indy 500. What we have, myself and Connery are commentating live from the RaceSpotTV VCO Esports Racing Summit 2022, taking place at Simply Race Milton Keynes. We had some great activity today. We had a TCR Hot Lap Challenge, a Porsche 992 showdown, a BMW GT4 showdown. By the way, both of those was won by the same driver. But we've also got drivers now doing a IndyCar Hot Lap Challenge. So they've got the same qualifying procedure as what drivers will be doing this week and, of course, all the next week to qualify themselves, and their fastest time will get a prize here in Milton Keynes. The most important thing is those light Arjuna are off on the top of the pace car.
Yep, getting ready to go back to green this time by, and single file this time around. It's all about getting the jump, and the further back you go, making sure you don't get swarmed on these restarts. It's so easy to miss the cars in front of you going. It's where, you know, in this top split, the bigger teams having spotters, having crew chiefs, where those extra hands really come in handy.
Indeed so, and you've got to remember the overtaking rules as well when it comes to making sure you don't overtake before the start-finish line, especially on the inside line. Otherwise, you might get yourself a penalty. So the pace car is going to come down on towards pit road. The field has been neutralized. We had ourselves a good, clean start. Are we going to have ourselves a good, clean restart? We're going to find out the answer to that one now, because we go back any second now to some green flag racing here. There we are. Green flag in the air, and we have ourselves at the front of the field. Christopher Demerit leading the way of all these drivers once again into turn number 1. Robert Malekta in second place, Andre Pinheiro in third, Alexis Newsom fourth, and Rodrigo Franzoni rounding out your top 5. And all the cars look as though they're good through 1, and all the cars currently look as though they're good through 2, as Malekta going down to the inside, passing Demerit. And the reason why we're not getting so excited about this, we're going to have ourselves about 60-70 overtakes to the race lead. It's just the way it works.
Indeed it is. And, well, initially it was a good getaway there from Newson on that restart, able to, well, go side by side, at least through turns 1 and 2 with a good couple of drivers inside the top 4. There's another change to the race lead as we get Christopher Demerit to the very pointy end of the field. But for Newson, it seemed like they just fell back through the field a little bit, caught offline. sometimes not necessarily advised to maintain the two wides coming around some of these corners, especially when the conditions are maybe not ideal for it, and especially in the fixed setup as well. So for Newsom, down in P6 now after previously fighting it just that little bit higher.
Yeah, just to run through retirees in this race. Oh, we have none. By the looks, it looks like Lucas Proda's actually back out on track right now. So we've got 33 drivers running in this race. You know what? I just saw Hugo Louise walking around for the first time in about 12 hours. One car coming on towards pit road. So that potentially, Arjuna, could be a penalty for overtaking under safety car conditions.
It was Thibaut Casabon. We've got the RAG cars out in force today. They were working with Christopher Demerit in the build-up to this race to understand what it takes to go quick at the speedway, and that's why you'll note the split livery for Demerit at the front of the field. Half of it the DHL Andretti Autosport car, half of it an RAG machine. But RAG Thibaut Casabon getting caught out by one of the basic things that we have here at Indianapolis.
Yeah, indeed. So, tough luck. And the thing is, Arjuna, if you get it early, you can actually, work your way back through. I mean, let's not forget Jacques Villeneuve famously did that in the Indy 500. If you're going to get a penalty, I always say it's better to get it in the first 30 laps than the last 30 laps. I've seen drivers who had a perfect run, overshoot a pit stall, get a small incident, and it's their race done. If you do it now, at least you have the opportunity with safety cars, etc. And that was mighty close on the exit of 2. You got the opportunity to maybe try and make that time back with the, the way the lap traffic works and the way that you can use strategy to get back on the lead lap.
Yeah, and you kind of hope and expect that there are a few more cautions that come through as well. When you come down to pit lane, usually you wouldn't get you wouldn't drop a lap down. Unfortunately, because Thibaut Casabon had that penalty, he has dropped one lap down with a rather lengthy pit stop. So we'd expect him to try and hope for some cautions to drop at opportune times, that he could find a way back onto the lead lap.
Yeah, it's a shame for Casabon. It's a shame, but unfortunately it's of his own doing, to be honest. And Christopher Demerit leads away by a quarter of a second over the number 4 car, Armand Exer, just at the back of your shot. You can see there's a couple of drivers still going side by side, and that's what Arjuna was saying earlier on, Connery. It's that mid-pack where we're going to see more overtaking because of the way the field will kind of spread out, and then there's going to be clumps of drivers together. The key thing at this stage of the race, more than anything, turn laps, get into that momentum and see how that car feels when you're running in clean air, then into dirty air, and when your car goes back into clean air, what the differences are than when you're the race car on this racetrack.
And of course, most notably, what adjustments are required in terms of the in-car adjustments here that are allowed in the fixed Indy 500s. Of course, they things slightly different for the Open Indy 500, where they have a lot more leeway with the initial setup of the car. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Figuring all of that out early on is going to lead you in very, very good stead. If you can figure it out faster than everyone else, then even better.
Indeed. So we are now on lap number 13 of 200 of this race, and Christopher Demerit still leads, as we say. Having a look down the field, we have got this. A look at his replay, by the way, of the restart. I believe this is coming down Arjuna, down into turn 1. Talk us through it. There's the incident at Casabon.
Just taking a look at what happened to Thibaut Casabon, passing before the line. It's a slam dunk penalty as he tries to work past Brendan Lichtenberg. I'm also noting just how crazy this restart was further back in the pack. 2-3 wide, very much the norm. Something to watch if we get a few more interventions from the safety car.
And this is one of those things. Some of the drivers, I mean, Demerit's been running this race for so many years. I'm going to exclude him from the list, but you sometimes, Arjuna, have people who spend the majority of their day running up front in strategy, or a bad pit stop or something will mean that they end up running in the pack. It's two very different experiences, running in the top 5 compared to running in P number 13, for example. And being able to adjust to that different style of racing, it's like you've got 3 or 4 different motor races all going on at the same time.
Yeah, no, very much so. And I think that's why, this Fixed 500 is also the gateway for so many to come and understand what the Speedway is all about. Last couple of years, we've seen Team Redline's Diogo Pinto race. 2020 inside of the top 10. 12 months ago, it was a race to very much forget. He's now a driver on the cusp of becoming a World Championship winner if things hold as they are. So I love that we've got, the Open 500. Connery talked about the baseline that you can have for your setup. Very different there in terms of what you'll build. So I really think that this is a really good addition to the iRacing special event schedule. It's why we see plenty of new faces, including Casey Kerwin up in 7th.
Yeah, Cohen doing a good job right now in that number 1 car. He's currently 2.7 back from Christopher Romero, but those gaps don't mean much at this stage, as you've got Cohen, he's got Oster just behind him, about 4 tenths of a second back, and then he's got Newsom about 4, 5, 6 tenths of a second up the road as well. What we see, this is what we like to call the train. You won't see much snaking at this part. It will just slow yourself down. You don't mind if someone overtakes you at this stage. It's more about getting into that rhythm, getting yourself, keeping them with that lead pack. And right now, your top 10 are separated by 4.3 seconds over anyone. So Demerit is leading, and you've got Tulo in 10th place, 4.2 seconds back. We're looking then at Johan Half, who's in 9th place right now, 3.4 back from your race leader. And Johan Half, again, he's got Austin and Cohen just ahead of him. That would affect that dirty air, Connery.
It absolutely will, and when you talk about running in the middle of the pack, that's exactly where Johan Half is. So you've got not only the effect that you have the car directly ahead of you, you've got a car or so further down the field as well. That's also contributing a little bit of an effect. Of course, the effect does wane the further ahead the car is, but yeah, it seems to be a relatively calm affair for the moment. Like you said, everyone just wanting to settle into their rhythms at this stage. Of course, we had that early caution, which could have, like I said, triggered a string of cautions as drivers sort of got in over their heads. But it looks like everyone just has their heads down and pressing forward.
One interesting thing I noticed, and again, some of the names in this are going to be very familiar to the IndyCar community, others aren't so much. Arjuna, Brandon Trost is all the way outside your top 20 right now. I think you'll see him running in P number 24. So Trost, he's run at the front of this field quite a lot. In fact, he was one of those people that said he wanted a fixed Indy 500. Well, he's got it, but he's struggling a bit. He's actually in P number 23 right now. But saying that, he's only 10 seconds, just over 10 seconds back from the Demerit.
Remember, he's the first car to have come down pit road. He's already passed Pablo Diaz Francis and Mehdi El Fathi, so he's managed to work himself up a couple of positions, but it's always going to be difficult to carve your way through. He's very much hoping that the strategy game plays out in his direction.
Yeah, indeed. So he's running in 23rd place, and that strategy will come back into favour later on. If we go green for, let's say, the next 50 laps, we'll see the difference between the drivers that came in the lap 6 margin and those drivers who stayed out, both in terms of tyres and of course in terms of fuel. The fuel being the big one because you run out of fuel, but the tyres can be important as well. Looking at the battle for P number 10 then, Alejandro Di Giulio in 10th place, Henry Bennett 11th, Jose Sure in 12th, and Primoz Lemniak in 13th place. As we look from the front angle then of one of these cars coming down towards the start-finish line, that yard of bricks, Connery, the last remaining part of the historic brick mark. They actually have a warehouse where they store all the old bricks, which is basically one of the most guarded buildings in the entire state of Indiana.
I think for good reason, because I dread to think what would happen if something happened to those. But yeah, such a historic event, such a historic race that continues to get better and better, at least as far as I'm concerned. But going back to this one, though, of course, it's great to see the different names taking part in these races. You have the IndyCar regulars, just look at the guy in P1 right now. But this fixed setup, Indy 500, just allows a lot of other drivers that don't have a whole team backing behind them that is able to create a really super special, really great setup. They can get themselves on there based on their own merit with a pilot in the car. And that's one of the better ways of doing things. I feel, at least for this version of the Indy 500. Of course, we have, we should do the proper process for the actual open one.
Yeah, indeed. So, and Arjuna, talking about bricks, I remember actually famous British commentator, famous worldwide commentator actually, Murray Walker, 2001 United States Grand Prix was his last ever broadcast. He actually got a brick from that magical warehouse. They are so prized as profession. I'm never going to get one. You might get one. You're luckier than me. You're award-winning after all. I
was going to say it might depend on the size of your bank account more than anything. I do know that you can buy, or used to be able to buy, bits of the bricks that they pulled up, but I guess now with, there's only a finite supply of those, they're becoming very much prized commodities. Did Murray ever commentate on an Indy 500?
No, he didn't. Jackie Stewart did a number of Indy 500s,
Right.
but Murray never actually did, unless he did a couple of clips in Grandstand, which of course was the BBC, but they never really had the rights in the UK. It's just as it went to kind of cable, Eurosport had it. It was Ben Edwards that did cards, and there was no one really doing the IRL back at the time. So fun fact, no, he didn't.
Like, the reason I bring that up is that's one of the great things that we can do here on the sim, right? You've commentated on all manner of things, 24 Hours of Daytona, Le Mans, here at the Indy 500, we can do Dirt Oval, we can do Rallycross, we can do it all. We're very privileged as commentators to be able to expand our horizons to a degree that real-world commentators would probably be quite jealous of us for.
Yeah, indeed. So as we look from the rear of Demerit right now, I have to say this is being a lot calmer out front. I'm impressed by Demerit's pace right now because it looks as though that he can kind of hold that half-second gap to Malexa. Either Malexa is doing fuel saving. Let's be honest, Arjuna. There's a very strong possibility at this stage that a couple of drivers will just go into very early fuel saving conservation mode. Get it right, work out what the numbers are. But Malexa doesn't seem to be anywhere near Demerit as we're 25. We're 1/8 of the way through this race.
Yeah, I wonder as well if it's just preserving the right side of the car, right? The right front really just take a pounding in terms of the heat that you throw through it through the course of the run. So maybe just sitting back very slightly. You can see the gap between Demerit and Malechka is smaller than the gap between Malechka and Pinheiro. So that's very much working in the favor of the Powerslide Motorsports driver. Able to keep close, able to work forward, and in a good spot to save some fuel. We're not far away, of course, from finding out how much fuel he saved. A green flag window was about 31 to 33 laps. Maybe with the caution that we had, you could extend that up to 35.
And those right front tyres, it's really interesting to see how that would adapt over the course of the day. Now, it's interesting to note that this is one of the few races on iRacing that still uses what we call static weather. This and the iRacing Indianapolis 500 next week use static weather. All the other special events, Connery, have got dynamic weather, so it's a lot more easy in some way to try to work out exactly what your tyre life is going to be, but you don't know where you are going to be running in a pack. Are you going to be fuel saving? Are you going to be pushing it every single lap with 2 or 3 cars in front of you, bringing that dirty air? As we've got the battle for P14 on the main part of your screen, that is Lemiak and Brophy going at it, separated by about a couple of tenths of a second, and you also got Ramirez in P number 15 as well.
Yeah, the static weather does very much indeed cut down on the preparation time, and when you combine that with the fixed setup, of course, it makes things all the more easier. Yeah. For the open setup guys, of course, imagine if they had to build a completely different setup for cold and extremely warm weather. I mean, road guys have to do it pretty much all the time, but it's going to be even more of a headache when it comes to a race as critical as this, where the hundredths, even thousandths of a second matter.
Yep, lap number 28 now of 200 here as we go back to normal pictures. And the interesting part of this again is that it looks like most of these drivers are very clearly just trying to stay in some form of a rhythm. We've not seen many drivers move up and down the field. I'd love to see the graphic of the movers and shakers, but there's not been many in this race so far that we've noticed have worked up 5-10 positions early on. As we have a look then at Jacob Oster in the number 16 car, running in 8th place, and he's about a second back right now from Cohen in the number 1 car. And the draft will still go beyond the 1 second in these cars, Adriana.
Yeah, no, it does. Probably about 1.3 is the maximum benefit. From there, it slips off. 1.5, you really started to tail out of it. Oster, one of the big stars of last year's Open 500, working with the Total Downforce Racing group. A real last-minute thrash in qualifying to get a setup capable of making it to top split. He managed to qualify his way through and rewarded now as part of Team i5G. And I gotta say, a lot of people think that setups just get handed to drivers. Jacob proved last year that he's very capable of building a setup, and he's someone that works on experiments that go up to the International Space Station. That's a pretty cool stat, if you ask me.
And to be fair, trying to set up an IndyCar is a bit like doing an experiment to the International Space Station. Some of the stuff that I've seen over the years, it's a little bit of that dark magic, Adriana.
It really can be. It's about throwing stuff at the wall and seeing kind of what sticks, isn't it? You might not always think it's going to work, but sometimes you just find speed. On the older tire model, we're talking now a couple of years ago, I can tell you that Team i5G showed their qualifying setup to a real-world engineer, and I think it's fair to say an amusing conversation was had. But with this newer tire model, Adam Blocker works, trackside now, with the NTT IndyCar Series. He shared the Powerslide Motorsports qualifying setup with one of the senior members of Ilmore Engineering, and it was interesting to hear that we're very much in the ballpark of what they do in reality now.
Yeah, they're not going to tell you exactly what it is. I mean, even for the Penske, Andretti, Ganassi, etc., they are closely guarded secrets. But it is interesting to know what the difference is over the years. Like when I used to do IndyCar racing, there were some silly things. And the thing is, you're right, sometimes you just have to throw it against the wall, see what works and see what doesn't. The difference in this race, it's all about really, in my opinion, muscle memory, adaptiveness, reaction time. Something is going to happen where you're going to have to slow down very quickly. That first one of those is going to come very soon. Green flag pit stops. Yeah, Demerit is on pit road already. So the number 3 car on towards pit road. That's one of the first big challenges of this race, slowing down from 210 plus down to pit road speed, because if you overshoot, you can be in a world of pain already. Yes, you'll lose 15 seconds if you do it on pit entry, but the issue will be that will cost you half a lap almost, and you're not going to have anyone to work with.
Yeah, what was that for Christopher Demerit? Around about 30 laps coming down in, so it's on the early side of course, the maximum clear air fuel stint, but getting off and away. What's do you think the call is going to be here for Christopher Demerit to come down in? Not quite at the maximum of the fuel tank, but a few laps before.
I think early might be a good opportunity. Also, it's a little bit interesting because he's been leading the way pretty much the entire time. His fuel burn has been much higher than all the guys around him, and they might want to protect him a little bit. Put him into a little bit of traffic, but not too much. I'm going to see how many laps are we going to wait, Arjuna, before we see Alexa, and it could be as early as this lap, or it could be 2 or 3 more.
I get the sense he's doing at least 1 more lap. I'd be shocked if he comes in this lap. This was at the green flag fuel window without a caution, and I'll eat my words, he's in this lap. Pinheiro Olsen able to stay out a little bit further.
Yeah, so Alexa comes in, and that's the difference, Arjuna, between drafting one car, going sometime soon, that swip swap, as we like to call it, when you do that drafting to try and improve each other's speed, and you being the 3rd, 4th car in line, when actually all of a sudden it doesn't matter as much at all. Also, that's one of my biggest pet hates, but it's the only way you can do it. The cars, you'll see them come onto the track between turns number 1 and 2. That's because it's a much faster angle to get back on track. Race control wouldn't approve it really in real life, but you play over here today, Arjuna.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that you'd be summoned and you get in quite a bit of trouble. It's all about the momentum, right? Especially with the tires relatively cool. How aggressive you can be is really going to sweep your momentum down. Look at the race off pit road, though. Demerit in front, but it's close for 1st and 2nd.
It is indeed. So we're going to get an update on all the times. Let's let them come out. Let's let them settle back down again. This is lap number 35 of 200 in the 3rd annual iRacing Fixed Indianapolis 500. You're watching it on RaceSpotTV. You're watching it also as part of the community event here at Simple Race Mountain Keynes on VCO social media as well. So hello to all the folks that's been watching us over through the day. Olsen currently leads the way, and this is interesting. So Olsen's coming on pit road, lap number 36. So lap number 35, there's some drivers, this is these drivers in Connery then, who did that pit stop early, who's going on to lap number 36 and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. These, like you said, these are the drivers that during that one and only caution that we've had so far came down in. Why not, when you're at the back of the field in those last couple of spots, why not come down and get some fresh rubber, top off the fuel tank? Gives you a few more options a little bit deeper in the race if you're able to improve your track position in the normal green flag running. So, yeah, we'll expect these to come down in the next couple of moments here, but it seems like the vast majority of everyone who stayed out during that initial caution period has now come down on towards the pit lane to get their first green flag stop service of the evening.
I'm not going to lie to you, Arjuna, that's the only way that I ever won a straight for field race was by fuel strategy. I was in a situation, I overshot my pit stall whilst leading the race, full back to the back of the pack under caution. Well, you might as well go and top up because everyone else is going to pull you around. They'll be the hot knife through butter. End of the race, I say 2 laps of fuel. Could run out to the line, off you go, happy days. But we've got Van der Sant right now leading. Trost is 8 tenths of a second back in 2nd. Albert in 3rd, Busquets in 4th. These are all drivers who have not yet pitted The first on the road, really, for those who have pitted, are Demerit and Malexa, who are currently 9th and 10th.
Van der Sant actually didn't pit under caution. I think he's run out of fuel, gambling to try and make it to the end of 37 and using the access road to roll his way into pit lane. He's got to be very careful to make sure that he doesn't miss his box because, well, he'll effectively then have to tow inside of the pit lane. That is suboptimal, to quote Lewis McLeod. We also talk about the difficulty of getting in and off of pit road. Casey Kerwin, a World Championship caliber driver, showing how difficult it can be.
Yep, indeed so. And that's always the issue. Slowing that car down. On one hand, it looks really difficult. On one other hand, drivers take it for granted. And Connery, when I used to be a team manager, this is one of those things I would always tell my drivers. Practice the basics. Practice pit entry, practice pit exit. You've got that bump on the outside of the, on the inside, just after the pit exit. And then also practice getting into your stall, getting out of your stall. These might only be a couple of attempts per second, but you combine that, that's 1 second per pit stop.
These are things sometimes the regular sim racer forgets about doing. I've seen countless times, not only in IndyCar or in oval racing or even in road racing, the amount of people have completely botched their pit entry, completely messed up, trying to slam on the anchors, trying to get into their pit box. They might have only practiced it on fresh tyres and didn't realize how much the braking performance is affected by all the tyres at the end of a stint. So therefore they overshoot it. And of course, you already mentioned the pit exit as well. All of these things, very, very important to practice. It should be part of your preparation coming into maybe even your next league race.
Brandon Trost on pit road there, the driver from Pennsylvania. Been a part of the IndyCar community for, well, at least 8 years, I think it is now. It's been on for absolutely ages. As we turn our attention back a little bit further up through the field. And this is Christopher Demera and Malexa going down to the inside in turn number 1. Gets the move complete. And again, for those of you just joining us, Arjuna, we're not going to shout about it. It's going to happen a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm a bit more surprised at how Malecha, on the restart that we had after that first caution, didn't really force the swap draft. Was a bit more content to ride behind. These two are swapping around now. And I think it's somewhat important, though, to track when the swap stops. Can Malecha work his way forward? Can he be in front of Demerit? Yes, he'll be punching the hole in the air, but that is relatively important to make sure you're in the lead coming to the next cycle of pit stops. I think if we go green from here, you want to be the car at the front in each of these cycles. These two starting to pull away from those behind. Newsom 2.3 back.
Yep. We've got a couple of cars coming out of pit road, and these are the last of stragglers who would have pitted under the last caution. But it's Demerit from Alexa, from Newsom, from Franzoni, Olsen. They are your top 5 right now. So let's just run through some of the key things that you need to know as we're on lap number 41 of 200. We have got 3 drivers who have scored 1 lap down right now. They are Lucas Prada, Adriano Pinheiro, and Rafael Acuista. You also have Fabian Casabon, who is 2 laps down right now. Part of the reason for that is due to the fact that he had a penalty for overtaking on the inside before they came to the green flag. There's a look then at your moves and shakers so far. The biggest one to note is that Oster is up 5 places right now. So number 16 of Oster is up 5 places. You also have Morales in P15, who's up 6 spots, Connery.
Yep, lots of decent movers so far in this event. Once we've gotten ourselves our pit stop cycle through, what's happened here is this Christopher Demerit coming down on towards the pit lane, just about getting himself slowed down there. Not entirely sure.
And the thing is, the difference. Caution number 2 of the day. Our second caution of the day is Rodrigo Franzoni, the number 19 car, who is the cause of our second caution of the day. That, to me, from the first look, looks so it's a solo car incident, but this is going to be out of turn number 2. So there's drivers behind him, but there's no one really in front. Yes, he's kind of in the draft, but not too much. Coming down in towards turn number 3. That's a little bit weird. You don't normally push up high in turn 3, Arjuna.
Well, and there wasn't too much dirty air in front of him. Again, I'll go back to the in-car tools. I just wonder if he had that car so that it was bouncing the right front into the ground, and from there it always pushes up, and that's a hard old lick into the wall. You see it bounce across the track. New damage model sending parts flying. Johan Hart having a close call. Franzoni, no control, sliding back up the track.
Yeah, and Connery, that means we're under our second caution of the day, just before we hit 1/4 distance. Ironically, we've talked so much about Barney, who is one of the most famous figures in iRacing. We've got to remember that come a couple of weeks' time, 2 weeks' time on Sunday, during the Indianapolis 500-mile race, one of RaceSpot's own, Aaron Likens, will be up in the flag stand in the position that Barney normally takes. And this is interesting. A lot of people coming on pit road. I think that maybe one or two's been left out to dry there. And that's always that interesting train of cars that comes in. Just having a look through on my timing screen, if it will ever move up. And indeed, Robert Malaxa has been left out to dry.
Well, he's got 10 laps on this. Yeah, he's got 10 laps on this thing. So he was part of that grouping that came down in, I believe, at the slightly later stage, because they came down in on the last caution. There was a little bit of half guessing, half trying to juke each other into pit lane, as there tends to be in these sorts of events. But definitely an interesting call there, as we see the rest of the cars heading their way off of the pit lane now. What do you make of that, Arjuna?
Well, I'm just now curious as to the call from demerit to box. Now, it's worked out somewhat nicely for him. Johan Hart, a very quick stop, just 4 seconds. I don't think he took tires, to be completely honest. It was so quick a stop. But passing's difficult. 13 cars now split the cars that have boxed from the lead of the race. I don't think you can really gamble on fuel strategy from here. I think you've just got to be expecting more cautions, already 2 so far today. I think I would have stayed out. I think the power slide driver of Malechka probably is quite happy with how things are played out.
Yeah, I agree with that one. To go back to our story, though, Aaron Likens, Arjuna, he was on RaceSpotTV's first ever broadcast, which was an IndyCar race at Ohio Speedway. And, of course, yeah, he's one of the flagmen now for the NTT Data IndyCar Series.
It's absolutely fantastic. And sorry to cut you off there, but it is absolutely fantastic that we have one of our a RaceSpotTV representative, and also, of course, he does a lot of work with Autism as well, which is absolutely fantastic, and is really goes to show no matter what, you can become whatever you want.
Next year, Arjuna, we'll bring you here as well, so that we can talk to you and we don't have to cut over each other. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the thing that amazes me about Aaron, not just all the work he does, but when we did the broadcast of the Open Wheels 2020 race, we're lucky, at least I'm lucky, I didn't have to experience what broadcasting in the dark ages was, where you didn't have this production feed so you could see what the viewers are seeing as well. You get to look around. Aaron basically commentated that entire race without knowing what the broadcast was seeing, but you couldn't tell unless I had just told you. That's what amazed me.
Yeah. And in fact, we've got 15 rigs here in Simply Race Milton Keynes. One of them is in honor of Aaron Likens because of the fact he was on our first broadcast on RaceSpotTV. You know what? You've got one as well, Arjun. I think you're rig number 3.
I like that. That sounds important.
Yeah.
Did rig number 3 get some decent results as well?
It did. Rig number 7, which is my rig, was just pathetic. Oh, lights are off on top of the pace car, by the way. I think they are anyway, Jenny. You can confirm that one to me. But lights are up behind the pace car. Single file restart. And this is going to be interesting. Robert Malaxa, of course, on slightly old tyres. Not going to be a massive issue right now because the track's not built up all the marbles. But you've got to be a little bit more careful when you're doing a restart on old tyres that's had a little bit of life on them.
We saw how it got checked up before. Thibaut Casabon paying the price with the penalty for passing before getting to the line. I wonder if we'll see that again, but I wonder as well if people got the memo and they realized, okay, let's be a bit more patient, let's get down into turn 1 before we throw a move and try and get past.
So lap number 45 will be scored complete then of 200 in this, the 3rd annual iRacing Fixed Indy 500. Don't forget, the Open Indy 500 is this time next week, live here on RaceSpotTV. Pace car gonna make that journey down towards pit road again. Of course, as soon as they come in, the leader can go early, they can go late, they will always hug the wall, because that way you don't have a car sneak around you Tony Kanaan style on the outside, and the green flag is back in the air. Well, Malaxa did a good start They're 3 wide as they work through turn 2 at the kind of semi-rear part of your field. So a lot more dicing. Look at that, Arjuna. Almost 4 wide as they work down the back stretch.
Yeah, Casey Curran thinking this is more a super speedwell style race to get things started, but it's all about finding track position early. Much easier to get past now than it will be once we settle into the rhythm and the momentum of the run. They're all fighting hard, 3 wide. I'd be a bit scared if I was Hugo Olsen in the meat of that sandwich.
Yeah, so Hugo Olsen, this is what we talk about as well. Racecraft, Connery. Racecraft is so important in this race. Being able to be comfortable going 3 wide at speeds of 200 plus miles an hour, that's how you're going to work yourself through the field. Because if you get on the naughty pedal, basically what's going to happen is you're going to lose through positions, and it's going to take you 15 laps to even try and get back up through there.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, you might think it's pretty difficult going 3 rides down into the braking zone at any road course or anything like that. But to do it here, when you know you have those huge aerodynamic effects, when you know that wall is going to come up on you very, very quickly if you get it wrong. And even if you're inside, the car on the outside of you is going to come up on you very, very quickly indeed as well. Yeah, I'm amazed that some of these guys can make that one work. Of course, it's not something you want to do every single quarter of every lap, but it's certainly impressive when these guys are able to continue going, not have it end up in a big wreck when they actually get themselves some wheel-to-wheel fighting.
Yeah, we're having a look at the battle for 19th place right now. Alexis Newsom in 19th place, Bruno Miranda in 20th, Jacob Oster even in 21st, Alexander Van der Sant in 22nd, and Alexandre Pico in 23rd place. We're having a look then. Look at that, trying to go around the outside line. Now, you can make the outside line work here in Indianapolis. It's not the easiest way to go around it, but sometimes you get the good momentum coming off of turn 4 and you can hold it down, then you definitely can try to go around the outside. I wouldn't recommend it though for the majority of the time. And we've got side by side then going down into turn 2 and onto the back stretch once again, Arjuna, and pass was not complete.
Yeah, and it opened the door for Alessandro Bica to have a look, but Van der Sant will hold off for now. The high line has very much been dubbed the Christopher Demerit line. He's used it to great aplomb in the last couple of open setup 500-mile races that we've had. Talking to him pre-race, he didn't think it was going to be effective. He thought that it would be worth being a bit more patient, tucking into line, but not so patient now. Demerit has just gone and passed Andrew Wood as he tries to cut through on fresh tyres. About 4 laps difference between Wood and Demerit. Of course, Wood, one of the final cars to come down to pit lane.
And the interesting thing, let's put our endurance hat on for a moment, Connery, because in these situations, we talk about how sometimes an extra... Oh, look at that! Oh, big incident! Caution number 3 will not come out unless this car goes back on track. Now, let's wait for a second.
It was Johan Haaf.
Yeah, Johan Haaf. It looks like we stay green because there is no one else around, but we'll get that replay in a moment. Well, that should have been our 3rd caution of the day, Connery. Just the way the yellow flags work, we avoid it.
Of course, we are, because of these special events, we are unable to have stewards that will be able to manually throw the caution in that case, which is what a lot of leagues do, just in case it doesn't get thrown. But since this is all automated and cars stationary or slow moving on the racing surface, the grass happens to be not the racing surface, it doesn't call it. And there's also a certain threat level with other cars coming as well that also influences it.
I think Ryan Hunter-Ray, there's a replay, Arjuna, took this rep.
Yeah, I just think he gets a little bit tight. Again, it's very similar to what happened with Franzoni. Up into the wall, Alexis Newsom tries to duck down low, and the only female champion in the Lionheart Racing Series unfortunately sees her race ended in the first month of May for the new recruit to Team i5G.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. And we're talking about, of course, the grass not being part of the racing surface. I think Ryan Hunter-Ray disagreed with that a couple of years ago.
He did, but... Well, I just feel bad for Alexis right now because the speeds at which we're going are just so high. There's really no time to react. You pick a lane and you pray it's right, Will.
You sometimes literally just have to kind of hold that wheel steady because actually if you try and change direction, you're going to make it worse for yourself. We are still, by the way, under green flag conditions. That number 53 of 200. And it's now a good time for me to tell you as well, we're going to get a replay up first. And we'll just work ourselves through this one. This is just a solo car spin Again, off the racing surface, so we're not going to get a yellow flag for that one, but we might as well take the moment to remind everyone, live timing and scoring is available. Visit RaceSpot.wtf/timing. That is RaceSpot.wtf/timing. As we look on board from the rear, Connery, of Brandon Trost in that number 23 car.
Yeah, Trost trying to work his way back up through the field in that number 23. Of course, he's got Demerit right behind, and well, not giving him an inch to breathe at the moment. Of course, you know, get so close, you get a huge, more of an effect of that dirty air onto your wing surfaces, shall we say? So we can see Demerit drop back for that reason. But yeah, things going along quite well at this point. We've only had 2 cautions here today, total of 6 laps in total. We've had 47 green flag laps. This current green flag run around 9 laps. So we're still getting ourselves into the finish of the first third of this potential green flag stint.
Yeah, indeed. So, and thank you very much to Timing 71 for all the useful bits and pieces that will help us during one of these long races. So we get to know how many cautions there have been, because I remember the time back in the day, Juna, you were trying to count back on your fingers exactly how many cautions has it been. But 2 cautions, 6 laps so far, 48 laps under green. And this race, yes, we've had a couple of stoppages, but it looks like the drivers right now, heads down, focus on the prize. I've not seen anything that would make me go, okay, that's a little bit silly.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been, you know, a quarter of the way through. You usually expect at least one crazy move, maybe even from someone like Brandon Trost, who's known for his aggressiveness, that's trying to work his way through the field, but it's been relatively sane. The only bit of craziness that maybe we saw was Malechka swapping with Adriano Pinheiro, who, of course, with a pit stop penalty, we saw him speeding on the entry, has dropped to 1 lap down. He was trying to help Malechka pull away, but DeTulio has managed to wrangle in the race leader. It's Henry Bennett in 3rd that sees some separation between him and the car up front. It is something to note as well, as there goes Demerit diving down low on Trost, that Pinheiro likely to be working with the Powerslide Motorsports group. Yes, he's running in effect by himself, partnered up with Rodrigo Franzoni for the Bread King Esports team, but Powerslide, as well as the one solo team talent driver, Jason Brophy, and maybe the Brazilians out there in the field might be working together here.
Indeed so, and sometimes you have those pre-arranged things. Sometimes it will just come up as you work your way through the race. Again, especially if you end up with one of your teammates, Connery, out of the race early. Sometimes you have that list, that B list, that C list of people who say, okay, it's acceptable for me to work with them. As we're having a look from the rear right now, we're on lap number 57 of 200, and that is Robert Maleksa in the Powerslide Motorsport car.
This is why it's always prudent to not necessarily be on good terms with everyone or most people in the race, but to be on terms where you could potentially work together. Don't make too many enemies in races like this. Of course, you know, given the historic nature of this entire thing, and of course, you know, the IndyCar community is quite tight knit. There's going to be rivalries. There's going to be friendships within that as well. But at least from my perspective, as for all intents and purposes, an outsider coming into this, I would want to make sure that I don't get up in another driver's face a little bit too much, just to make sure that then I can potentially rely on them if needed in a race such as this.
Oh, come on. The first thing I did was I called half the community an elitist, pretentious B-word. You know, and still now we talk about that. Battle for P number 18 on track. Bruno Miranda, Jacob Oster, Alexander Van der Sant, and Alessandro Bico. And we're looking at that battle on screen right now, Juno. And again, these drivers, they seem to be running in that pack. So they don't seem to be too aggressive to really move through the pit. In fact, I'm not really seeing anyone who I can really say is going, okay, I'm making a charge for a number of drivers.
Well, we're getting some of the background noise of the fun that is happening at the Esports Summit community event that Simply Race, VCO, and RaceSpot are all putting on together. But yeah, Van der Sant's had a couple of looks here and there, but each time he tries to set up the run, what really just happens is he gets brought back into the clutches of the World Championship competitor Alessandro Bico, who's wiggling his Williams Esports machine, trying to work his way forward. You'd be slightly frustrated, I think, if you're Jacob Oster, down 7 positions from where he started, because the call to come and pit just hasn't worked like it has for his Team i5G teammate of Christopher Demerit.
Yeah, I really do apologise for that one. we've been going now, I mean, we've been here for 11 hours, and that's the first time we hit a wrong button all day, Arjun. I apologise if it caused you to have a little bit of excitement.
No, it just blew my ears out for a second, but I'm a bit jealous that I'm not there. And, you know, we're talking about the aggressiveness. That's one thing. An unnamed World Championship driver, I don't want to get this person in trouble, but he was saying that the worst thing about sim racing is that after a race, specifically in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, he can't go over and punch someone else in the face for what they've done to him during said race. And that's what I think live events are all about, right? Actually having some accountability for what you do. Dirt racing in the US is notorious for this. If you wreck someone, you better expect some hands to get thrown.
I'll tell you one thing. Even though when we were setting up yesterday, we felt like WWE, we had tables, we had ladders, we had chairs, there's been no fighting. In fact, everyone's been really nice to each other. I mean, there's been times in the past I have seen almost fisticuffs. Connie and I exactly know what we're talking about, but you know what, it's been a rather fun day. But I've always said, I'd love to see an event like this with an iRacing Indy 500 in it. There would be fisticuffs, and we know it. God. We know it, Connery.
Yeah, we do. I mean, usually the road drivers can be, well, not as spicy as some other disciplines that we might be commentating on right now in particular as well.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be very, very interesting. I think possibly the venue, if we get IndyCar guys in here, might have to actually hire security. To be able to, to be able to keep them apart from each other.
But meanwhile, we're on lap number 63 of 200, so we are making some good progress here in this race. Normally, you look at about 7 to 8 pit stops, depending on whether we know what the weather's going to be here, but depending on the cautions and when they play out. And that's a key thing, Arjuna. When you've got this kind of like playbook going on, you've got to think about at what point. When we saw this earlier with the snake going on, at what point do I commit to pit road? At what point do I just want to try and tease the other drivers in?
Yeah, you know, play the fake-out game. It's a little harder to do at these kind of speeds. When you exit turn 4, you basically have to know what you're doing, especially on the edge like these drivers really are. The balance of the car is so ginger that you don't want to be jinking one way, then back to the other, but body language is so important. I do think we're going to see Malechka being able to come down with a nice healthy gap. Pinheiro's been really playing nice with him. He's up to a full second clear of DeTulio as we ride on board with the 2020 Open Wheels 500-mile race winner, Hugo Olsen.
Yeah, so from Malechka now, it's almost a second. Almost a second. Thankfully, we don't have DRS on an oval. Because that would just be really silly. But Alexa has got himself, it's closed down a little bit over to here, number 33 car. Henry Bennett in 3rd place is in the number 8 car. Lemonek in 4th in the number 31 car. And I would say at this stage, there are clearly 7 drivers in this lead group, Connery. So that's 7 drivers who are really running together. But it's not really a big gap then from P7 back down to that second pack, which starts with Brandon Lichtenberg in P8.
Yeah, they're all keeping each other honest here. There's not all that much separation in the pack, which I kind of expect, given it is the FIXED series, as we see visitor on towards the pit lane, and it just so happens to be our current race leader, Robert Machelka, heading his way down and in all alone for the moment. I'm not spotting anyone else deciding to come down in on this particular lap here. Arjuna Malechka all on his own on pit lane.
Yep, no, it's all by himself, and that's the price you pay for being the leader. It's the price you pay for the swap draft as well. You're not able to save any fuel, but I think more crucially is if we go green from here, that gap that he's been able to build up with the assistance of Pinheiro might prove to be crucial. DeTulio still about 7/10 clear of Henry Bennett, who's got Lemonek behind. RAG really showing up well. It shows that Christopher Demerit's a good teacher as well, because DeTulio up there, Lemonek's up there as well. Really impressed to see what Romain Grosjean Esports has for us today.
The key thing is, Arjuna, if you're leading the race in this situation where we're having long green flag runs, you want to get that gap up to about 2.5 seconds. So the draft is no longer a factor. At that point, the drivers behind you are having to do exactly the same as you. They can't fuel save, they have to run flat out. It becomes a proper driver's race where it's not about strategy. But right now, Tulio's not built up that advantage. None of these drivers have really built up that advantage, and because of that, the pit stops become even more vital. That 2 tenths to a second of being a little bit more cautious as you come in, or locking up that brake pedal when you're trying to get down to pit road speed. Those little tenths to a second really start adding up at this phase of the race.
No, you're right, they do. But I think, you build up that advantage over time. It's great if you can have 2.5 seconds in a 30-lap fuel run, but more realistically, with the model, of the draft and the way this race is playing out with this fixed setup, I think you build that up over time, and that's where Malechka is going to be slightly happy, I think, that Pinheiro came down to pit with him, because these two, clean air, guess what they'll start doing again, Will? They'll start swapping once more.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about having a dance partner, Connery, that can be really useful in this situation. And sometimes you find your dance partners when you're on track. You get lucky or actually you struggle. And it all comes down to sometimes what your reputation is and what, as you talked about before, a very interesting but also very close-knit community.
Yeah, and like I said, you got to maintain that good reputation so people are actually willing to work with you, and you've gotten yourself into a bit of a spot of bother rather than just leaving you out to dry instead. Like I said, there's an element of luck in it as well. You're coming out in close proximity to another driver where you may not necessarily be friends with them, but at least you have that car ahead that you can just start slingshotting off of, because it's mutually beneficial for both of you to do that and not screw each other over.
Yeah, so we've got some more drivers coming on towards pit road as we speak. Jason Brophy is on pit road. Florian Libre is on pit road. So these are those drivers, once again, who are kind of on that alternate strategy, Arjuna. And it is only 5 laps, but at this stage, it is an alternate strategy, and it will continue to be that way until we have a yellow that neutralizes the field.
Yeah, and it's from after a lap 100 or so that I think you start to do the count back, right? Where you start thinking, okay, it's a 33 maybe lap fuel window if you're able to push it a little bit forward. Okay, lap 99, the magic, 99 to go. If there's a caution there, that's the magic number. That's when we come in. That's when you start doing those mental gymnastics. Right now, you try and keep it a bit more loose. You go with the flow. Demerit cycled up in front of a couple of cars, but it's really not been as easy as I think he was hoping to carve through the likes of Brandon Trost, who he is still behind right now. So that's where it becomes difficult. We're getting that indication as well, Will, that if we have a caution with 25 to go, let's say, and everyone has already made their final pit stops at that point, I don't think if you're inside of the top 10, you come down and pit. I think inside of the top 15, you don't come down and pit.
No, and I go back in the annals of the iRacing Indy 500. One of the best drivers who was able to pit and get through the field was Tim Doyle. And he would always tell me that outside the top 12, it was never an option. And what he would do is he'd always take the risk based upon exactly how many laps the drivers ahead of them have done. If you've got 25 laps to go, you shouldn't come in. It's only really if you've got yourself in that situation where you're on the outside looking in, you want to try the Hail Mary throw, then you go for it with 12 to go and see how much you can do. Battle for B's number 17, Robert Maleksa, Alessandro Di Tullio, and Primitiv Lemnek right now, Arjuna. They are scrapping it out for P number 17. They're side by side in towards 1.
It's still Pinheiro, remember, that orange car that's the lap down that's helping out Malechka. The gap between Malechka and Di Tullio, which we think is the net race lead, has grown to about 2 seconds. It was about 1.1, 1.2 into the cycle. That's where the helps come in, Will. You said 2.5 is the magic number. They're almost there.
They are indeed, and they're slowly building up that advantage. You don't do it in 2-3 laps. You do it over a run, and it comes through these very small maneuvers, Connery. Someone that's watching this broadcast for the first time, watching IndyCar on an oval for the first time, this is what we're talking about, almost millimeter close racing. We're talking, as we've got an onboard right now, we're talking about drivers who are basically having to deal with, a foot here. They have the sleeves back in. So on board with the demerit on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen.
Yeah, a lot of people don't appreciate how perfect the timing has to be to end up having a net gain, or at least the best net gain that you can get out of slingshot moves. Because if you're doing it without too much coordination, then actually in some cases you could actually end up hurting your lap time instead of gaining it if you don't do it in the appropriate way. But optimizing those swaps are a very, very big thing, especially when we're starting to see a little bit of separation. We see Malechka Oscar just using the lap traffic to his best advantage, and these swaps have been absolutely perfectly timed so far, which is why we've seen the gap grow so much.
Yeah, we have indeed. As we are having a look on field. By the way, RaceSpot.WTF/timing as Sam Michael sets a new personal best, 41.042. Lucas Prada is back on pit road. Brandon Trost has just come out of pit road. David Casabon has come back out onto track as well recently. So we'll keep an eye out on them. But of course, they are many laps down at this point. I can tell you, by the way, we are almost 1 hour into this race. We just saw side by side. We got away from it. But we are at that stage now where we are, 59 minutes exactly into this race here, Arjuna.
Yeah, a couple more cars making pit stops, and it is an endurance race. I don't think people realize that. If we go green, yes, this race can be done in, about just under 3 hours, but it's still not a short race by any means, and people think, oh, it's left turn after left turns. You've got 200 laps, you've got 4 turns, it's 800 left turns. I'll challenge you to come and drive with these guys and see how easy it is. Adjusting your in-car tools, again, staying on top of them, running as close to the wall as you can, knowing when to do the swap. It is much more difficult than it seems. And going back to the question you just asked Connery, Will, when it comes to swap drafting, I've been talking with Team i5G in the build-up to next weekend's 13th iRacing Indianapolis 500. It looks like demerits on pit lane. 2 of their drivers are a 1/10 of a lap quicker swap drafting than any other combination of the 6, 7, 8 drivers that they've got in their roster. That's why we talk about the swap draft is not just doing it, but how you do it that is so important.
That is key. And again, it's, how do I explain it in the nicest way possible? It's a bit like an intimate relationship, Arjuna. Once you know exactly how it works together, then you actually start benefiting. Yeah, you can have 2 drivers swap drafting. You'll be at about 60% efficiency compared to 2 people who know it inside out, working with each other. That's when they gain those extra thousands, those extra hundreds.
Yeah, and it's about being a little bit further back as you enter into the corner, getting the momentum through, and then trusting the other person to give you the right line into the next corner to all set it up. Like you said, I think intimate relationships probably the best way to describe it, as there's a bit of a pit party. Van der Sant's in, one of the Obsidian Racing cars in, Biko's in fact 2 of your Obsidian Racing cars box. The 30 misses their pit box. So easy to do. That's the team manager for RAG, El Fathi, that's now going to spend a second longer than he would have liked to.
I tell you what, I actually used this whole countdown for the first time. I found it more confusing than I just had my man and a lollipop and a flag stall. And it's one of those things that, Connery, as I said, if you want to make a mistake, you make it now.
Yeah.
I always say when you do one of these races, like an Indy 500, you want to build up to perfection. The replay's up on your screen now. That's what happened. It was, a couple of inches, but you're too far, you have to reverse, it will cost you a second. You want to build towards perfection, because if that happens later on, you've got no time to recover. Now you still have some time to recover.
Yep, you do. Anything before the halfway point, even getting in towards the, into the second third of the event, it's or the latter part of the second third of the event, which I guess is the start of the final third of the event. Well, we'll just look at it that way. But either way, drivers coming off of pit lane now. Of course, the missing the pit lane. You said it was very, very easy to do. It's also not people usually think, oh, you just overshot it or you've undershot it. You have to do it laterally as well. You have to make sure you're actually in a sideways sense. It's the best way to explain it in your box, because sometimes it's quite finicky about that as well.
Yeah. That entire process on towards pit road, including, not hitting the attenuator on the way in, slowing down, making sure that you actually end up square. It all makes a difference. Look at that. Roman is up 14 places in this race in that number 5 car. You got Morales up 14 places. Brandon Lichtenberg up 16. France is up 19 places in this race so far. Again, that's a little bit out of whack right now, Arjuna. But actually, some of these numbers, they show the long, dual kind of green flag runs that we're having. They're starting to show who have got the basics of this race round down. And I've got it written on my piece of paper right now. Do the basics right, and then you can deal with everything else. And for some of these guys, they're definitely doing the basics right. And it also shows those names, it's those long-term experiences.
Yeah, well, the names up the front and the ones making big headway are some of the bigger surprises, right? Lemonec, Tutulio, the two R8G drivers. Yes, we've seen Tutulio as he starts to swap now with Lemonec, run in the Road to Indy E-Series and do quite well there as well, but very much more of an open-wheel road course racer. A Romanidis, F1 esports driver that's transitioned to iRacing very, very well. Showed some pace last year in this race, but was involved in an incident within the opening 5 laps, so maybe it's a bit hard to really talk about his pace. Finished down in 31st. Now, the thing that surprises me about him is that paint scheme. Do you want to call it an eyesore? Do you want to call it cool? I probably go the former.
Can't something be art and an eyesore at the same time?
Probably. That's what my mom always used to say about my face.
Oh, I can't say that. I was going to say about the stuff that you have to put on the fridge. Wasn't going to talk about there at all, Arjuna. That's a little bit too harsh. We all love you here at RaceSpot. By the way, lap number 82 or 200. Yeah, we're having some fun here. It's a long race, but the thing is, these laps, it's all about getting yourself to the last 50. It's all about building yourself up. We're looking right now at the number 5 car, Ramdanis, as he is 4 seconds behind Malexa in this battle for the race lead. And in fact, there is Malexa in that number 4 car. We haven't talked about this one yet, Connery. Lapped traffic in a fixed race is a little bit more difficult than doing it in the open race to really get past.
Well, lap traffic currently, lap traffic's Maleska's best friend at the moment, considering how well he's been working together with it. So it's, but of course, there's going to come a point where he's going to come up on a particularly belligerent car that doesn't necessarily want to easily get itself well out of the way, and then it will stall out the run of both of these guys that have been working together, and then potentially you might see Tutulio, Lemonec, Romanidis sort of eat into that gap a little bit more. The gap is extended up to 3.5 seconds, but you know it only takes maybe 1 or 2 lapped cars to really put a massive dent in that.
Yeah, it does. We are on lap number 84 of 200 here in the iRacing Indianapolis Fixed 500. I tell you what, guys, I need to take a quick break. I'm not going to lie to you, Connor. I have literally been here now almost 11.5 hours. So, you know, nature calls once in a while. So I'm going to hand it over to you two for a few minutes. But as we say, we're in that nice phase of the race. Please don't have a caution, guys.
Oh, well.
That is the curse of the commentators within literally 2 seconds. Lap number 85 of 200. Caution out. I'll be back in a minute, guys. Talk us through it.
So I think it's Lucas Prada who's really endured a tough day, but sometimes that's what it's all for. And again, well, sliding up the track, and that's big damage. Fortunately, though, Connery, he hugs the wall and doesn't bounce back down onto the path of oncoming traffic.
Yeah, very, very fortunate there. That's the main trigger of afters, shall we say, when we see incidents like that with cars rolling back down the circuit. Let's get another look at it, just washing up, and bang, right into the wall there. The car right behind had a very, very lucky escape. We were talking about during the last course, Jonah, how tough it is to react to anything that's like immediately ahead of you when you're going such speeds. They got very lucky.
Yeah, and the man who's going to be most disappointed about that, Robert Malechka. The gap had opened up to about 3.5, maybe even 4 seconds with the effectiveness of the swap. And we talked about, you know, getting to lap 100 and doing the countback. I think we will see cars boxing this time by, not because they're going to be able to make it from here by cutting out a pit stop, but because Malechka's already about 20 laps into a stint here, Connery.
Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't be conducive to remain out there on such old rubber. So yeah, we're going to see the at least the very front of the field head their way in. Of course, coming down into Tutulio. Same with Lemonec as well. We are seeing a couple of cars that are remaining out there, sticking with their particular strategy. Primarily the ones that were at least a little bit younger on their existing stint already, so it's less of a risk for them to continue to stay out there. But you know, these cautions, they're a big factor when it comes to throwing a bit of a curveball with regards to what is actually good track position or not.
Yeah, the one car that maybe surprises me who stays out there is Jason Brophy. 16 laps into the run, the private label team hype driver will take over the race lead along with Brandon Trost in terms of the oldest cars out there. Demerit's back up to the front now. He's third. Hugo Olsen will be having a big smile on his face, as will the likes of Casey Kerwin and Jose Soria as well. So those are likely your biggest winners when we consider what's just happened here. There's another car just washing up the track, and we talk about how this is the gateway, right, to the speedway for many of these drivers, Connery, but it's also a real trial by fire. You get a setup which isn't always optimal. The teams within the community work year-round often to get their cars dialed in for qualifying and for the race itself as well. The drivers who are new to this, well, they get to figure out what the track's all about with a setup that's, again, suboptimal.
Yeah, I've attempted to run in a few of these myself way back when, and yeah, it is very, very tough, especially if you're not ingrained within the community, if you're not doing it week in, week out. It's a very special kind of racing, and a very, very punishing kind as well, because if you get even something very, very minor wrong coming through the corner, you're coming in a little bit too high, coming in a little bit too fast, you haven't positioned yourself quite well enough compared to the car ahead of you to make sure that you're not getting the worst of the dirty air. Even small mistakes like that can have absolutely massive repercussions, and that's what draws a lot of people to this kind of racing, because it is that close sometimes. The margins are just so fine.
One thing that I like as well, 3 years now that we're doing this is the third annual iRacing FIXED 500. It's the third year in the row that the man that's put it on quote-unquote pole position will not actually start this race from the pole. Now, Brandon trainer Christopher Demerit will argue who actually won pole position is quite clear. The man that started this race was the pole position sitter for this one. Pinheiro gets his lap back. That is going to be very, very important for him as he tries to work his way forward. Brandon Trost, you'll see, is doing fuel saving under the caution. He's taking the access road. Don't think there's any rule against that. Might be frowned upon by some of your competitors, though. But again, it's a good thing to see.
Yeah, I don't think it's protestable. If so, Nim would definitely have his work cut out with regards to the amount of people that do it. But yeah, I mean, you got to do whatever via whatever means necessary to try and get the advantage here. It's a very, very typical racing driver thing. Is, you know, any competitive person would be able to vibe it with that. So yeah, maybe some of the drivers might be slightly annoyed about it, but you know, there's no rule against it. It's more of a social faux pas, I suppose.
So I got to ask you, Connery, how has it been with this community event going on? How are the people enjoying seeing what it's like behind the screens as we blabber away about random racing stuff?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've of course, a lot of people, given the regular proceedings here with the actual esports events has now finished. A lot of people have decided, well, not a lot of people, but a good handful of people have decided that they want to go out to have food or whatever. But we still got a good crowd in here. They've also been reacting to what's been going on as well, Arjun. I don't think you can quite hear them, but they have indeed been reacting, especially to some of the wrecks that we've had. But Pace Car's going to pull its way down and in. Arjuna, take us away.
It's going to be important for those on fresher tires to make hay while the sun is still shining. Third caution will draw to a close. The top 13 yet to come down pit road. Your former race leader, Robert Malechka, in the thick of the action. We're back underway for the third annual iRacing FIXED 500. It's a good launch from Casey Kerwin as he looks down to the inside of the SRC Movano Corsa car. And the XZ driver up back into the top 5, looking backwards though at Robert Malechka. He's got his work cut out. He looks inside for 13th position.
Yes, this will be our first real sign of how these drivers on the, well, about 7 to 10 lap fresher tyres are going to be able to try and work their way through on the rest of this field. So that's the situation that we have to be keeping track of. If Malechka, Tullio, Romanides, how quickly are they able to gain track position, if they are even able to gain track position on those cars that did stay out. Of course, we saw it was a bit of a struggle with just a couple of laps delta. There's a little bit more this time around. Let's just wait and see.
Alexander Van der Sant looks to the inside of Jose Soria. We saw Soria compete in World Championship competition in the Dallara iRacing Grand Prix Championship last fall. Also competed in this car in the ISO WC, so clearly experienced when it comes to the open wheel machinery. Michael Romanides jumps in front of Alessandro Di Tullio. That's somewhat important when we think about those cars already having boxed. If the cycle plays out in their direction with about 75 odd minutes to go, We'll wait and see where they're going to end up. It's calmed down. I expected a lot more craziness on this start, Connor. You remember what we had last time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw that big cluster at the very, sort of rear third of the field on that previous restart, which went 3 wide in some occasions, which is always very, very sketchy here at Indianapolis. But they were able to make it work, and once again, we've gotten a very, very clean restart here on the 90th lap of the 200 that we have to run here. We've had a couple of cautions so far, but that is only natural in this sort of racing. Hopefully we can get ourselves another a chunk of green flag running in, and then drivers, well, start counting back from the end of the race.
33 started, we're down to 20, in fact, excuse me, 30. Lucas Prada has rolled his car back out onto track, so he's determined to at least finish this race. Alexis Newsom, Johan Harth, the most recent retirees, a big issue for the Frenchman for the Apex Racing team off of turn 2, saw him slide down the track. Alexis Newsom, your 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series champion, nowhere to go. Both of them get collected, at least for Alexis Newsom, though. It's all eyes on next weekend and the 13th running of the iRacing Indy 500. The only other retiree, Rodrigo Franzoni, another car knocking down the wall. We've seen plenty of cars really understeering tight, and I don't entirely blame them, as Lucas Prada, I think, realizes his car's got a bit too much damage. He might be retiring from this race, because it's always better to have an understeery car than one that wants to snap loose on you.
Yeah, it's a little bit more predictable, shall we say. So you see Sara heading his way down the inside of Woods there, not quite able to complete that one. We've got Biko having a little bit of a scrap going on for P11 and 12 as well. But you are absolutely right there, Arjuna. Having a loose car, it's always super sketchy, no matter if you're in the car. I mean, I'm more familiar with the NASCAR side of things when I used to do a lot of oval racing. I would also prefer to have a little bit of a slightly more understeery car compared to oversteer, because it's more predictable. Yes, you know, some drivers absolutely hate it because it feels like you're pushing a dump truck around the track the entire time. But at least you have that sort of security that is not going to all of a sudden snap on you into an unrecoverable slide or spin.
Seeing Edu Morales in the Obsidian racing car look down low as Henry Bennett's going to try and make the outside line work. I think one thing that, you know, as more and more people look at this Indy car, if you ask me, it is the best car on the service, at least when it comes to road racing. The oval package, more of a real-world problem than an iRacing problem. It just doesn't produce the best racing. Here comes Pablo Diaz-Francis looking on the outside. Morales is going to lose out after going on the offense. But we saw this car race in VCO Infinity just a week or so ago, and a lot of the feedback that I got from some of the top drivers from the likes of BS Competition and other teams is that, you know, we like this car a lot. We'd love to run it more, and that's what I think people have to do on iRacing sometimes, right? Is break out of the bubble, because we get so fixated on the things that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, we get so fixated on GT3s, on you know, 911 Cup cars and things like that. We sort of lose the perspective of the bigger picture of what other kinds of racing, what other disciplines are on the service, what other types of cars are available as well. And you know, there isn't really a car on the iRacing service that can't deliver a good race. You know, I don't think there even is one.
You're probably right. I'm just trying to think right now. Now, is there anyone who's commentated on World Championships in every single category? The only one that I can think of is probably Randy Cheneth, who would have done the World of Outlaw stuff, I believe. Definitely did Rallycross, if I remember correctly. Definitely has done some NASCAR, or well, I guess it was a Peak Antifreeze series back then. And I think he's done World Championships on the road as well.
I'm reaching back in memory banks to try and remember if I heard it. Of course, Will has been much more involved in that, especially during the early days than I was. I mean, I doubt I was even an iRacing member when the whole WCS thing just started. But yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he was even guest commentator potentially on one of them. But yeah, we'll have to ask when Will comes back, because of course he is on a little bit of a break at the moment. But we're almost at the halfway stage of this race, Arjun. 96, we're on our 96th lap at the moment. And, well, the running has been good so far. We've had a couple of wrecks here and there that have triggered a couple of yellows, but we haven't had an absolutely almighty multi-car pile-up just yet. And I'm promising I'm not cursing it just like the previous caution.
Yeah, just like Will did. The closest we came, right, was Johan Harth and Alexis Newsom. That could have ended much worse and could have taken a lot more, but we got through that with the smiles down from the iRacing gods as, yeah, we're getting closer and closer to that halfway marker of the race. Again, though, the crucial thing to say, Robert Malechka, fresher tires, hasn't made any head ground. At least Chris Demerit, when we saw him on that previous cycle of pit stops, was able to work his way forward. The power slide driver that sits in 14th, still stuck and not really closing on the RHE car in front.
Yeah, Alhathi is holding station at the moment, just about 5 to 6 tenths of a second ahead. Malechka just struggling to make forward progress. It seems like there needs to just be that little bit more of a tire delta for you to try and progress forward on the race with the with making a call on the tires and people trying to stay out. So yeah, it's just not quite there just yet for Malechka, and of course those that did come in that time around. But did they even necessarily have a choice in that department, though?
Well, they were 10 laps different, basically, from the likes of Christopher Demerit. Brophy was in a very similar number. He's working lap 28 of the stint, and I think he's the one that did the gymnastics, that mental gymnastics, and has figured out that if he can go 3 or 4 laps longer from here, he's looking at being able to cut out a pit stop, at least relative to the likes of Malechka, once you factor in the extra stop that they've had to make. So I said lap 99 to go, probably the magic number in terms of getting to the end with a bit of fuel saving. We'll wait and see if that holds true, as Adriano Pinheiro is pulling it down onto pit lane, has got his lap back. I think he might actually drop off of the leading lap, though, unfortunately. We'll see how it plays out.
I'm back. I just wanted to make a quick note about lap number 98, of course. Dan Weldon, he grew up just about 10 miles away from where we are in central Milton Keynes, an old place called Emberton, just near Olney. And of course, he won his second Indianapolis 500 in the year 2011 in that William Russ machine. We all remember Dan Weldon, the number 77, of course. I remember him as well from the numbers he used at Chip Ganassi Racing and Andretti Autosport. The number 98 as well was really important. To shout out for the memory of Dan Weldon. By the way, it's also great to see his kid getting involved in karting. Yellow flag at lap number... No,
yellow.
We stay green. The car pulls itself off track, so was running by itself. We get ourselves to the halfway point of this race then, with 3 cautions in the books. And well, Arjuna, it's the second half.
Yeah, but what happens here? Again, it's understeer. How do we not get a caution? That is what surprises me. Yes, there's no one really coming, but that is an almighty slam, and it was Jacob Reed that I think might just become our 5th retiree of the race.
We'll say though, attrition overall in the iRacing Fix and the iRacing Open Indy 500 far improved from the 2013 when I actually ran in the top split Arjuna. I didn't do very well. I finished P number 16. I finished about 2 laps down. But the attrition here today, very, very good so far. We're looking at only a few people out of this race. I'm going to run through them for you now. We have Rodrigo Franzoni out of this race, Johan Harf, Alexis Newsom, Lucas Prada out of the race, and now Jacob Reed looks like he's going to be out as well. David Kazwan is back out on track, but realistically, we're only 5 cars out of this race so far. That is great attrition for 50% plus race distance.
It's great, and I look back at the history of this race as well. So last year we ended with 11 cars on the lead lap, and if I remember correctly, less than 15 even took the checkered when, all things were said and done. The year before, 10 on the lead lap. I think it was 12 got to the checkered flag as Jason Brophy will peel off down onto pit lane. The competition is just so much more significant and higher, as we've gone year on year. It becomes even more crazy when you think about the fact that Brandon Traynor has gone back to back in the iRacing Open 500.
Yeah, we're going to have to stop thinking of it backs and think of like an X5, X6. Hello, by the way. We are Wilvinson and Connery Maddock. We are live here in Milton Keynes for the second half of this race. We've had 2 fantastic championships here today, giving away some great prizes, including a racing driver's set of boots, of all things. But we're here. We've still got the community here. They're getting psyched to go out a little bit later on. And this has been great, Connery. We've been at it now for almost 12 hours. We got to this venue, but it's great to see friends, old and new. It's been great to have great racing, and of course the IndyCar Hot Lap Challenge, what we've got going on as well.
Yeah, it's great be here and meddle with and communicate with a lot of different members of the community, you know, for the first time in what feels like a very, very long time. So, yeah, it's great that we've been able to put this event on, and you know, hopefully at some point maybe it might go more international. Of course, you know, it was easier for people from the UK to get here than any other place, but of course, you know, it's we need more of these, and not just here in the UK. We need them elsewhere in Europe, and of course. And perhaps the most need for it is actually in the United States as well, because they have so few opportunities to have events like this.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, as I said many times before, I would love to have a sim racing event during that kind of 2-week period between qualifying and race day for the Indianapolis 500. You know, actually, Adriana, Aaron Likens and I were that close to commentating an Indy 500 broadcast top split live from Indy. We just ended up with an issue. We've got a replay and another car. This is where, you know, in endurance racing, we call it silly hour. We get into lap number 95 through to about lap number 110. We end up with what we like to call the silly moment of the race. The fatigue starting to kick in for these drivers.
Still got an hour or so to go as well. We've got a long way before we write another chapter of history here at Speedway Indiana, the virtual Speedway Indiana. And, you know, at some point, I think we do need to do a RaceSpot event live at the Brickyard, because there's so much history for RaceSpot there. It would be great to maybe celebrate that here in the US. If we're doing an event in the US, I think that's where we should do it.
Yeah, we just need the funding. So if anyone wants to help, please let us know. You know, a couple of Bitcoin, that would be a good starting point. We've been joking about Bitcoin all day today.
Well, it's yeah, definitely. I don't think it's as valuable as it used to be.
So long as it's not Alpine coin, would be okay. Brandon Trost is your leader right now. Christopher Demerit in second place. I mean, let's be honest. Brandon Trost, in terms of these types of races, he has come mighty close to winning a top-level Indy 500 in the past. Well, Gina, we say top-level, of course. We have got the big races, the FIXED and the iRacing Indy 500, but over the years, we've had things like the 16th Street Racing League Indy 500, the Open Wheels Indy 500, the ISOWC Indianapolis 500, the Classic IndyCar Series and 500-mile races here as well. Trost has come second a number of times, but he's actually now onto pit road.
Yeah. If you ask me, the iRacing Indy 500, one of the biggest races in sim racing, but you talk to the competitors, especially within this community, it's all about the Open Wheels 500-mile race. The pressure that you get when, very much like in the real world, you only get 3 attempts at qualifying. Every time you go out, you invalidate your previous attempts. I love that sort of pressure. Let's have a look at something that's happened to Jason Brophy, because I'm not going to let him forget this. He's got a history of having issues on pit lane. From the lead of the race, has done that again, finds himself 1 lap down.
Yeah, and we'd like to pay our respects to the cone at the same time. I've just done the maths, by the way, Arjuna. 93 laps for Brandon Trost. That's 31 laps. He can do this with 3 more stints.
He's right on the money. I think 31 is nice and easy. I thought Brophy was in a decent spot to make it happen. What's happened to Trost?
Oh, no. Did he get a speeding penalty? He's running slowly or stopped, according to my computer screen. Did he overshoot his pit stall? We talked about this earlier. We talked about the fact that if you're running on fumes and you don't make it into your pit stall, it is game over because you have to do the tow. Has that just happened to Brandon Trost, Connery?
Possibly. We'll have to line up the replay if we can get one, but that is absolutely huge. This might be it. So let's see the angle coming down in towards the pit box. Does he completely overshoot? He slides straight through it and tries to back it up, but he's got the angle all wrong, Jenna. This is awful.
It's what you were saying, Connery, earlier with, you know, positioning yourself laterally correctly as well, and I think he might still be trying to find his way into the box. It's another car from the lead of the race having issues on pit road. Pit stop execution, I mentioned it earlier, Will. Brandon Trost seems to be out of contention.
I will put that one in the curse of the commentators. I wrote it down in the red book that 93 laps, I wrote it all down. I had the talking point ready to go. He's out of the races, Brandon Trost. That's a disaster for him. Heartbreak for him. Another year goes by for Brandon Trost where he's got himself, like, you know, 95% of the picture complete, and he's just not been able to unlock that victory. And he must be really disappointed, Arjuna.
From what I'm getting, what I can see from that and from word down in pit lane, he was all sorts of out of the box. That we knew. Too far left, then too far back, just couldn't get it dialed in time. And, well, at that point, he'd already lost enough time. He would have likely gone a lap down. Unfortunate end to the race for Brandon Trost.
Yeah, Sam Michaels has just come out of pit road. Christopher Demerit just sets his personal best at 40.782, and Mehdi Al-Fati is on pit road right now. So anyone that's in this kind of like group of cars, Connery, they can make it on 3 more stints, and this is why we might end up talking about that moment back at lap number 5, because even though we've had the field neutralized since then, well, it hasn't been neutralized. Your strategies continue all the way through the race, regardless often of where the yellows come.
Yeah, it's just being on the right side of that fuel window, isn't it? You know, 1 lap before, 1 lap less. Yes, you can do the best you can to try and sit up behind someone, use the fuel mass just to try and save just that little bit of extra fuel to get maybe a lap or so of extra. But at one point, you're going to be either good on the fuel window or absolutely on the wrong side of it, and that completely changes the complexion of the race for you. Which is why a couple of laps does make the difference with the lap 3, lap 4 caution that we had that you mentioned.
Yeah, we just want to, by the way, very quickly, seeing as iRacing is owned by John Henry. Congratulations to John Henry, Liverpool. 8-time winners now of the FA Challenge Cup, so they've got another one in the books. They're trying to do a kind of soccer quadruple, or quintuple actually, Arjuna, as we've got on pit road, we've got Cohen and we've got Soria on pit road right now.
I'll go back to Liverpool for a second. The fact that they have played every possible game that they could have this season is the part that's most miraculous to me. It's a long year of football, especially as we're coming to a World Cup where it's been shifted to the winter. Schedules have changed as a result of that. You've got an even busier international schedule that you've got. I am in awe of what Jurgen Klopp has done, not just with the squad and their fitness, but the level of performance that consistently they're able to put forward. A couple of weeks ago, it wouldn't have been so unlikely, as Jacob Oster come down to pit lane, that there would have been a tie for the lead of the Premier League between Manchester City and Liverpool that would have seen us go to an extra 39th game to decide it. As it sits right now, though, I think Man City one hand on the championship.
Yeah, ironically, the VCO guys who've been with us all weekend, they're going to see West Ham Man City. So you never know, upsets always happen when you go down to the East End of London. But let's go back to some sim racing, shall we, Connor? Lap number 115 in this race, out of 200. Malaxa leading then, 1.8 seconds over Ramondis. And now we've had such a long, again, period of green flag running with all the strategy going on. Those gaps are starting to eat themselves out just a little bit more, as we've got Bennett coming out of pit road. We have El Hafafi coming out of pit road as well.
Indeed we do. Yeah, it's just a natural progression as far as that is concerned. But Malashka actually getting himself almost a 1.8 second gap back to Romanidis right now. This is what Malashka's been very, very good at, just extending that gap by every means necessary. Definitely has got himself clear of the slipstream just about back to Michael Romanidis. So that's a bit more of an issue there for Romanidis. But the thing is, for Meska, he's still running out there on his own. Doesn't seem to have a drafting buddy as far as I can see. Apart from maybe those 2 cars ahead that you'll be feeling the very tail end of the effects from. So it might not be running totally on his own as far as the field numbers at this stage. But yeah, you still have to be a little concerned about that, especially as the leading car. That your fuel mileage is going to be pretty terrible compared to the rest of the field that have been able to run in their own packs. But again, he's got a decent buffer, and I think the track position, I think in Malashka's mind, is probably the more important thing right now.
Well, just to let you know, social media /RaceSpotTV on Facebook, at RaceSpotTV on Twitter. You can use the hashtag RaceSpotMK, or Jenny, you can use a much more popular hashtag #BlameHugo. It's tongue in cheek. We love Hugo Louise, but there's been the whole Blame Hugo meme for so long, we decided to make it an official hashtag for an event.
At some point, we'll get T-shirts made up with it as well, won't we? It's always Blame Hugo, especially when he needs to answer the call of nature right before a broadcast, we'll put it that way. Working lap 118, I just wanted to point one thing out with Malechka. He's very, very quick when it comes to the ovals. Competed in 13 of the Lionheart Speedway Series races last year, so he missed the opening 5. He won 7 of 13, and if he had raced in one more race, would have been the champion. That is a remarkable feat, as here he comes to pit lane. He was 1.7 seconds clear of Romanidis as the pit stop cycle opens once more. Big lockup of the brakes, but looks nice and tidy from the number 4.
Yeah, you don't really mind if you lock up the brakes that much because, you know, the tyres are coming off the car anyway. We're not doing an endurance race where they're going to be on the car for 3-4 hours. We've got Malexka, Romanis, Tulu, Lemonek, Morris, Albert, and Ruse all on pit road right now, getting into their stalls. And yeah, good entry. We'll get a look at the pit stop times in a moment, as we're looking realistically for somewhere in the 9 to 10 second range. We've got some guys going a little bit longer, 10.9 for Tulio, but out and away they all come again. Another pit party on pit road, Connery.
Yep, and everything relatively smooth, it seems. You saw the number 4 just dig back onto the normal live racing circuit that, of course, is allowed in the current rule set, and now he dives back to the back onto the back straight, and well, allows the traffic by just a little bit there, getting up behind. I can't quite see the number. The feed quality is not necessarily the best that we have here at the venue, but we've got another round of pit stops coming in as small driver decide that. Well, now's the time to come down in on lap 120. The Bigre, Lichtenberg, and Busquets all deciding that now's a good time.
Yeah, it is. It's also that time when we start talking about laps to go rather than laps completed.
Oh, no!
Yeah, car on the wall then. Was that Lichtenberg?
Oster, Jacob Oster in the green and a gold i5G car.
So you were talking about how great he was earlier on, but his day is done. Of course, what he's got to try and do now is at least try and get that car back to pit road. There is damage. I mean, a hard hit at the wall like that, I don't see how that car doesn't have a meatball flag.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I just wonder if maybe now we're looking at one by one the chips starting to fall for Team i5G, and poor Jacob Oster. Alexis Newsom, no fault of her own. This one, you know, maybe again just behind on his tools, and Oster slams into the wall.
Yeah, those tools we talked about as well. You know, they've been a feature of Indianapolis racing for so long. And Arjuna, the thing is, people think, oh, it's one of these things that makes the car seem like a computer game. No, it's not. These are actual mechanical parts of the car that are designed to move up and down and, you know, designed to weight distribute the car around. And some of the stuff in qualifying, you know, Tony Kanaan, I remember, that was a hard hit in the wall. Hard hit in the wall. I remember Tony Kanaan and Elliot Cashmanova was doing interviews and they're saying, no, we are literally changing everything, weight jacket, anti-roll bars, every corner, every single lap, because otherwise we are going to brush up and we're going to slam the wall.
It's more significant than that as well, as, by the way, Jacob also hit the no more I'm done button, commonly known as the Alt F4. He is very much retired from this race. But, you know, talking to some of those real-world drivers, unlike what we get here in the sim, where we've got the limited range, right? What the ARBs do is what the ARBs do. There's a little bit of adjustment that you can get with ride height settings and whatnot to dial the car in a little bit more, but you are very much working within a narrow box. In the real world, that is blown wide open. You can customize what a click on the weight jacker, for example, does, how significant that's going to be. They are going a lot deeper into these in-car adjustments than we can really fathom, and that's why I really do enjoy the proactive nature of these teams and drivers. And, you know, to hear it from someone like TK, he's someone who knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend you check out qualifying for the Indianapolis 500 on NBC next weekend, or if you live in the United Kingdom, you can catch it, I believe, on Sky Sports F1 over the course of the weekend, seeing as NBC and Comcast now actually own Sky rather than that idiot from Australia. 16 drivers on the lead lap right now. Sorry, 22 drivers on the lead lap. 16 drivers separated by 16 seconds. So we talk about how is things going in this race, Connery. You know, you get the field separation, less drivers on the lead lap, 22 on the lead lap. That is 66% of those who started this race still running on the lead lap, if my maths works correctly.
Yeah, it's a great rate of attrition for lead lap runners, isn't it? Because you usually talk about rate of attrition of guys, well, they're still running, but they got some form of damage and they're not really all that competitive. But to see 66% of the field still on the leading lap when we're deep in green flag stints like this one, that is absolutely fantastic to see as we're riding on board there with Casey Irwin. It's fantastic to see the well, not quite the driver's eye view, but at least a perspective of what's going on ahead there. But I'm just having a look at how long this green flag run has gone on for right now. It's at 38 laps. That makes sense given we just had some green flag stops. So yeah, it's over and under, and this actually being a pretty deep green flag run, or are we going to have at least one more caution before the end?
Well, okay, Arjun, this is what I was thinking about just now when I was having my comfort break. It's very weird that everyone seems very equal. I don't see anyone who is particularly a standout driver who could make a charge. Everyone is so equal right now. I think if we stay green, it will come down really to how you do those basics, the pit in, the pit out, the fuel management, the tyre management, all these sorts of things. If we get a caution with 10 to go, I can't choose a winner.
I think if we go green from that point forward, the winner's coming out of the top two. I think third on back is just being fed so much dirty air that it's very difficult for them to close up forward. Now, Casey Kerwin can save some fuel, and that is something he will definitely be doing. However, all he can do with that is try and jump in the pit stop itself. So that's where I think we're looking at. It's making sure you're one of these top two cars when we get to that final cycle of the race.
And when we talk about jump on pit road, Connor, what we mean is, of course, you need 200 laps worth of fuel. So if you save fuel now, and you all need to get to the same point, what you do, you start saving half a second, maybe a second on that final pit stop. That second can translate into you being able to get 2 pit stalls ahead, for example. When you come out of your pit stop compared to the competition, you make the positions up the pit road by doing the fuel saving now.
Yeah, that's again, it just all comes down to the very, very slim margins, because yes, that is also fuel games, fuel strategy, the whole strategic planning of your average endurance race, for example. It's that, but in a grander scheme. But this is more like zooming in on the micromanagement level of things and looking at those small hundreds, thousands of a second that's really do matter at the end. I mean, how many photo finishes have we seen in Indy 500s previously as well?
Oh, we see so many photo finishes here. It's a case of, I've written my script for the last 2 laps. It's got to have photo finish camera on there. It's got to get your shotguns ready, all this sort of stuff. We know it's going to be a close finish. And the thing is, in history, this race, iRacing Indy 500, in fact, even the private coast one, traditionally, we had the luck of the race finishing under green. Well, we had over 10 years of the iRacing Indy 500 finishing under green.
I don't think it's actually finished under caution, at least the main broadcast race, since its inception. We've been... 2020 had the run to the caution, what was it, 1 or 2 laps at the end when Traino, Tanner Watkins and Brophy battled it out there, and ultimately it was Brophy and Watkins that came together out of turn number 4. But yeah, we do tend to get those green flag results. But looking back to last year, both in the fixed and the open races, it wasn't a complete photo finish. Fixed was a lot closer than open. 3 cars at the podium split by 3.5 tenths of a second. But open, we knew Brandon Traino was winning as soon as they took the white flag. The gap was that considerable. The addition of the aero screen has really changed the balance of the car so significantly that it's really affected the way it raced. This chassis, you think back to what was Alexander Rossi's run through the field on fuel with all of that strategy playing. Now, that was a fantastic race. And last year was great in its own way, but it's not the same race that Indianapolis tends to produce, at least in Full Metal Motorsports.
Yeah, and there's always 2 types of Indy 500. The ones where everyone's on the end of their seat, and you got the ones where it's a calculator game as much as anything else. I mean, don't forget, Bertrand Baguette was laps away. Oh, yellow. So I started talking about Bertrand Baguette, we get a yellow flag. I'll talk about him later on. So 4th yellow of the day. Mehdi Al-Thafi, I believe, might be involved. Let's have a look on the pictures. Up into the grey, up into the wall. Oh, that one looks like it could have been avoided, that caution. After everything we've seen today, that car could have just gone towards pit road, Connery.
Where did he actually stop it out on circuit, or is he just continuing to roll and that was enough for iRacing to decide to throw the caution?
Because you slowed down enough, below 50%,
slow car, yeah.
It turns into a caution on an oval, but that's a weird one, because you could have just gone towards... Okay, there's a tap then, down at turn number 3. Coming into turn number 4, you're in the grey again. You just... I'm very sorry, Arjun. There is still enough room to move that car down towards...
He's trying to steer. You can see he's desperately trying, but I think the right front wheel is just not giving him what he needs. So watch here. Just watch the steering wheel. It's basically left hand down from here, but it's only going in one direction. Has another tap, and from there it's gone. It's toast. Maybe the right rear's got some damage as well. That car just did not want to come onto pit road.
You know what? That's how my car was when it got T-boned a couple of months ago. It would turn left. It just would never turn right again. So 69 laps to go. This is the interesting point. That's just outside the window for doing it on 2 more stints, Arjun. You're mighty close. If you can fuel save your entire way and you're bold, you can do it. If I was someone right now, I would pit, and I'd pit with 1 to go.
I think, yeah, that's the thing, right? Pit with 1 to go. Now, if you're the cars at the front, I think you have to box because you're 20-odd laps into the race. Stint, excuse me. For those behind, I suspect maybe they'll stay in. Jason Brophy stays out. He's 1 lap down. He will get the lead lap back. He will work his way to the tail end of the field and fight from there. Now, does anyone else stay out there, excuse me? Looks like Edu Morales will be the only car to gamble, and he's worked himself then up 20 positions to the lead of this race.
I've seen this happen in the past where sometimes those old tyres can really throw a curveball. And it's going to be the thing as well. If this is going to be the case, he's not going to come on towards pit road, because sometimes what we have here, Connery, and it sounds a little bit silly, some people would like to come in by themselves rather than coming in amongst all the traffic, because again, like what we have in endurance racing, sometimes, and don't ever tell this to the captain or Chip or Michael, sometimes finishing an Indy 500 is actually the most important thing to them. They know that they can't win it. They want to finish it. They want to finish it on the lead lap. And sometimes they just don't want to pit with all the traffic. They don't want to be the person that ends up being turned around on pit road.
I mean, it's a similar, well, ignoring the pit road stuff, it's a similar sort of thing in a 24-hour race, you know, in an endurance race like that. You know, for a lot of people, getting to the checkered flag is the primary goal, may even be the only goal that they have in some circumstances. But with this, though, it's, you know, at least for I guess the top half of the field, you would say, you know, it's going for glory, or you might as well just have not have won anything in terms of getting second place at the podium. You know, it's you know, for those guys, going for gold is the only way they're going, the only goal they're going for.
If you remember back, Arjun, I think J.R. Hildebrand when he finished P33, and I think Sage Cameron told me when he finished P32 or something before, the anger is not about the crash your car. The anger is because of the fact that you get so much of your prize money from the Indy 500. If you finish and you crash a race, you fall below all those people that were slow but finished, and the prize money drop off is so much.
Yeah, that will hurt. That will definitely hurt, especially when, you know, it's something that bugs me with real-world NTT IndyCar competition. The sponsorship is often not there for a full season, right? So you get cars that jump across sponsors. They significantly change their liveries over the course of a year. It becomes very difficult for, you know, a casual fan to come in and pick up race on race who is in what car and which driver is doing what, right? So in a sport like this, in a motorsport like this, where you might think it's a spec car, and for the most part it is, but there are big programs that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on dampers, and the few things that you are allowed to develop, prize money can mean a lot. Or in the case of someone like Sage Karam and Dreyer and Reibold, just being able to do more races than the one that they tend to do year on year.
Now, here's the interesting question for you, Adria. You were unfortunate enough to crash the car and finish, I don't know, 31st. Who would you be more scared of talking to? The captain, to Chip, or to Michael?
Well, can I pick none of those?
Go on.
I don't know, to be honest. I get the sense that you probably don't want to anger the captain, especially now that he owns this track.
Yeah, well, no, to be fair, the captain really a person. He wouldn't shout at you. He'd just bring you into a meeting, I think, a week later, and get down and tell you all the bad things. Michael would chew your head off, and Chip will just give you that look of, I'm not angry, I'm just very, very disappointed. By the way, lights are out on top of the pace car. This could be interesting, and the reason why it could be interesting is because Morales is going to be in a situation, if I get this correct, he's going to be on old tyres, and he spins them, and he decides to go late, he could be in a situation, Arjun, and this entire field gets mighty close.
They're only 15 laps old. I think he'll be okay. There's two cars that stayed out, Morales and Labriga. Casey Kerwin, the leader of those who haven't pit. Will we see more craziness? We're about to find out.
Green flag is out of the air. We're back to racing then, with 66 laps remaining in the 2022 iRacing Fixed Indianapolis 500. You're watching it live on RaceSpotTV and also on VCO's Twitch stream as well. Through turn number 1, through turn number 2 we go, and you know what? They all survived it, Connery, once again. No real issues down at turn 1 on restarts. I'm mighty impressed.
Yeah, I'm very, very impressed with it, as well as we get ourselves a little bit of side-by-side for the race lead. Labriga and Morales involved in that one, but of course with 66 laps to go at this point, deep inside the second half of the event now, counting back from the finish in full effect in this situation. Labriga leads, he has the track position, same with Morales as well, but of course there's a little bit of a pit stop cycle difference involved in this as well.
Yeah, and that pit stop difference will come together at the end. We'll talk you through those last 30 laps. It will all become clear. So we haven't yet seen the massive snaking. We started seeing a little bit of it there down the back straight away, Arjuna. As we get into the last 20, 15 laps, the snake will become real, like a Nokia 3310. But for now, everyone just about content to work with each other, trying around the outside of turn number 4. Didn't quite make it work.
Yeah, that's Bruno Miranda in the Junkos Racing esports car that now, again, if you try and get the move done, you sometimes just open yourself up to those behind. It's Alessandro Bico in the Williams esports cars. That's two names you might not have expected to be racing alongside each other, Junkos and Williams, but that's the glory of sim racing. They're tucked up behind Sam Michaels in the SRC Movano car. Look at how close they get to the wall off of turn 2 as well. Fresh tires, you can push a little bit harder at this point in time. There it goes. I think that's Pablo Diaz-Frances looking down low on Alexander Van der Sant.
Yep, so they go side by side into turn number 1. That was really close. That was really close, Arjuna. That looked to be, through turn number 3, not turn 1, sorry. That looked to be about a quarter of a car width.
Nose getting chopped off there. We'll put it that way, won't we? As, again, looking at Bico now trying to look low. He can afford to be a bit more aggressive. Malechka's behind. And Malechka's the one that, of course, really is lost out with that caution because, you know, about 70 laps ago, leading this race, 4 seconds clear, the caution comes out. He gets cycled back into the mid-pack, has not been able to recover just yet, and I think he's going to need a little bit more help to do so.
Yep, so 63 laps of this race to go, and it is the number 32 car leading by about 3 tenths of a second over Morales right now. We've got 3 drivers inside of 1 second of each other. Demerit's in 4th, Olsen is in 5th place, Soraya in 5th, Michaels, Miranda, Bico, and Malechka round out your top 10. Just to give you the update, by the way, on how many cars we have on the lead lap. We are still looking at 22 on the lead lap. Andrew Wood is down 1 lap. Fabian Casamore is down 2. Mehdi Al-Fati is kind of out the race because of what we saw earlier on. He's currently classified 7 laps down. That car will not get repaired, Connery.
Yeah, I don't think so. It was very, very significant damage. And even if iRacing says all of the required and the optimal repairs are done, that still doesn't necessarily mean that the car is in any fit shape to be back out there and racing, and well, might end up causing another caution if the driver could not handle it. So yeah, I think for all intents and purposes, El-Fati's out of the event. It's just not quote-unquote official on our timing just yet.
Yeah. By the way, just want to give a congratulations. This is a bit unfair. Will Chadwick wins TCR Challenge, which is kind of him just running around in his own backyard. Well, we'll talk more about that one later on. Libra right now, 3 tenths of a second, 4 tenths of a second ahead of Morales. And we're at the stage of the race, Arjun. How long are you going to be nice to people around you? At what point are you going to start thinking, I say this nicely, start thinking about number one and ignore everyone else?
I think 50 laps to go is when the thought first creeps into your mind. I think 20 laps to go is when you start to look forward. Malechka, I think, has gone into fuel save mode as he's tucked up behind Diaz Francis, who's managed to get 2 Powerslide Motorsports cars in the last lap or so. 10 laps to go, alliances are out the window. You see Demerit running with those i5G, the R8G colors representing, though, Team i5G. If he's alongside with any of the R8G cars, 10 to go, he's working for himself. He's by himself. The thing that always intrigues me as well when we watch Chris Demerit is nice and calm, by the way, even with 60 laps to go. Look at the angle of his arms as he works through the corners, Will. I don't think that looks very comfortable to me.
No, it doesn't. You know what? I see some very weird driving styles. We had some in one of the series we were talking about earlier. There was Christopher Demerit, then currently P4 and truck. We had we had one driver who was almost as if his arms were up by his face. We've had some really interesting ones. Of course, the good thing about fixed rigs is that you kind of get everyone in the same driving position.
It kind of, there's a slight bit of adjustment here and there. I mean, it's literally only forwards and backwards with your legs, so it's that's the only adjustment.
But you were taking the mickey out of my driving position in the 10-minute car ride to the venue today.
Yes, you are very reclined when you're driving well. Yeah, it's like you've got the sun lounger out.
Yeah, there is kind of like normal driving, then you have the recline, then you have the, how I call it nicely, gangster level of recline. Then you get to mine. My back is that old. I'm only 34 years old. That if I have any further forward, I'm just in massive agony, Arjuna.
Well, I'll talk more about driving positions in a sec. I just noticed in our YouTube chat that a certain Robert Malechka has jumped in to say it's time for fuel save chaos. That explains why he's being very tentative. And I think now you're talking about, before the green dropped and as the caution flew, 69 to go. Could people make it with, just one additional stop after we got back to racing? Clearly the goal for Powerslide Motorsports, for Malechka, for Van der Sant sitting 11th and 12th, and maybe Henry Bennett back in 15th is, let's save fuel, let's try and eliminate a pit stop.
And you know what? I always used to tell my teammates, your fuel saving, you start it early because you cannot do it late on. You do it early, you can do it little and often, you can get yourself into a routine. But the thing is, at the same time, Connery, if you're going to fuel save, there's one word I always tell you to remember. Commit.
Yes.
Got to commit to it.
You can't do half and half. You can't just bail out of the situation halfway through, and at that point, you're completely throwing away your strategy. You just got to commit to it, and you've got to commit to it as early as possible as well. Once you see the strategy window open up, you're going to have to commit to it straight away. Otherwise, you're just going to completely miss that opportunity, and you're absolutely nowhere as far as the race is concerned. So this is going to be interesting with the amount of fuel saving that's going to go on for this final couple of stints.
It's not like the it's not like the commitment you'd have with an OkCupid or a Tinder date, Arjuna. You got to go a little bit further than that. And the thing is, in this situation, you're not doing it for one stint. You don't come out of pit road and go, oh yeah, happy days. No, you're doing it for 2. And the thing is, the most annoying thing is, you're only going to find out if it works in those last 5 laps if we stay green. And the thing is, at the same time, if there's a caution that comes out at the very end, well, it might work in your favour, but then you've actually then got to punch it for that last lap after going at kind of 80% pelt for a while.
You said the key word right there, which was if it stays green. Fuel saving works nicely if it stays green, because even if you save fuel, you think you might be able to save time in pit road. No, because at that point you are limited by the amount of time it takes to change the tires, and you need tires to get to the end of this race. There is no feasible way that you're not going to box for tires every time you come down to pit, at least in my mind. So it's going to be fascinating how it plays out, and I do think Malechka's in a good spot. I think Van der Sant's not in a bad spot. I wonder who else is doing the fuel saving. Maybe Romanidis, maybe Lemonek as well. They're not pushing the issue. Maybe they know, with people on the wall helping them. Of course, Williams and REG, big outfits, big operations. Maybe they're getting the memo as well.
Yeah, we didn't have anyone from the RHG actually with us here at Milton Keynes today, but we did see Stephen English from Williams Esports and a number of their drivers and engineers, which was really useful. And again, they're one of those teams that's really pushing out that whole idea of, yeah, it's an esports thing, but you don't need to have everyone driving. You've got all those different roles as well that people can come into, the same way that Williams F1 would recruit people front of house, back of house, on the wall, in the garage.
There are many names behind the scenes of some of these top drivers and these top teams that the regular viewing public will have never heard of. And they're just as important, as the whole rest of the team, the drivers themselves. We're talking about spotters, we're talking about crew chiefs, strategists, things like that. That all contributes to making these drivers and these teams as potent as they are on circuit. And even some of the bigger teams, we're getting more in towards the PESC and the Coca-Cola eNASCAR series as well. There's even sports psychologists that work for some of those very, very big teams, those very, very big outfits. All of that all culminates into attempting to to extract the most out of any particular driver, and they need to be shouted out as much as the drivers themselves do sometimes.
But no one will ever be as important as Angela Collins to Lewis Hamilton, of course, who basically just follows him around and does everything. But on board, buddy, Andrea Pinheiro in the car, things sprinting. That was mighty close. That could have ended horrifically, but there was definitely contact there between the number 2 of Pinheiro. We're going to get a replay of that one up definitely in a moment. But that was mighty, mighty close between Pinheiro and the car ahead of him, which is Brandon Lichtenberg in the number 14 car. That was almost a massive caution there, Arjuna.
They are playing it loose and fast right now, that's for sure. We'll get a look off the back, I think, of Brendan Lichtenberg and see just how close that rear wing came to being chopped off by Pinheiro. You just see the overspeed, the double draft that he's got, and Lichtenberg, to be fair, gave him room, but at these speeds, at these margins, one little chink to the wrong side could have ended in tears, could have been the caution coming out. Yeah,
indeed. So here we are. We're into the last quarter of the race, and we're into the last quarter of the race, interestingly, exactly 2 hours into this third annual iRacing Fixed Indianapolis 500 special event here on RaceSpotTV. Live timing and scoring even is still available. RaceSpot.wtf/timing. Track conditions, 55 degrees track temperature, 25 degrees Celsius in the air, 55% humidity, pretty much no cloud, pretty much no wind. A wonderful May day here in Brickyard in Speedway, Indiana, Connery.
Absolutely, and this is going to be an intriguing finish to this race because it has this sort of huge strategic element to it as well. Drivers, realized that at the end of that, or rather during that last caution that we had, that they knew that this might be a little bit more marginal on the fuel than we are used to here. We're seeing a good couple of drivers deciding to come down in, Labiga and Morales. Those are the two that are running up front most of the way, at least in this particular stint. They've decided to head their way down in now. The first fingers, and of course they would for sure have to stop before the end. Their situation is 2 more stops actually from this.
No, just the one. It would be a shorter stop. Remember, those are the 2 cars that did not box during that last cycle of pit stops. The only cars on the lead lap didn't get swarmed by the pack. Maybe Casey Kerwin doing some fuel saving as well, but it's Kerwin, Demerit, Olsen, and Jose Soria all split by about 1 second. 3 of these drivers somewhat regular. Casey Kerwin, a World Championship competitor. Good to see him again out here in the Indianapolis Fixed 500. Of course, only a couple of weeks away from the real 106th running of the Indianapolis 500. Of course, next weekend's qualifying weekend, but join us on Saturday for the 13th running of the iRacing Indy 500, and then it's a busy weekend, of course. At the end of May, you've got the Coke 600 in NASCAR, you've got the Monaco Grand Prix, as here comes Soria working his way up to 3rd. The Indianapolis 500 contact, Hugo Olsen up into the wall. I think will stay green. The Swede just about hangs on to that one, but the Open Wheels 2020 winner going to slide downward through the pack.
Yeah, just went straight off of camera, and we feared that he was only heading for the wall on the outside, but it looks like he's been able to get away by the skin of his teeth. Still running, seems to be no damage on that car. We've got 2x2x2 up front there, as well as drivers tried to cycle in after pit stop cycles. So yeah, this is where it starts getting a little sketchy. This is where the likelihood of a caution is relatively high as that traffic mixes in.
Yeah, now, Hugo Olsen finds himself down in 10th. I've got to assume there's damage to his car. Bruno Miranda in the Junkos Esports car is the one that took full advantage of that and has worked his way to the front of the field, which is definitely the place that you want to be. Let's grab a look at what happened then to the Swede, and it was the move from Soria looking down low, and I think there was just a little bit of contact there. You can see, yes, there was some air between the two of them, but it's Olsen the one that loses out, and I think he's going to have some significant damage. Last lap for him was a 43.099. The leader did a 42.066.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll blame my slightly fuzzy production feed in that sense of not spotting the damage. But yes, 45 laps to go. That could have so easily been another caution, which will completely throw the playbook out the window with regards to what the drivers have set for a green flag run all the way to the checkered flag. Then we just sort of push the big reset button, I suppose.
It goes back to what Will was saying as well. When do you start pushing? When do the alliances get thrown out the window? Well, we're within 50 to go. This is when things start to pick up in terms of intensity. I'll get back to what I was saying. Busy weekend at the end of May. Coke 600, Indianapolis 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, and as well, the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. You can't have enough screens to follow all of that action.
Yeah, you definitely need to have eyes absolutely everywhere. We need like 15 different PCs to give 20 million different angles of that entire situation. But yeah, certainly looking forward to that one. But we've got this special event to get out of the way with first. We've got obviously the Open Indy 500 as well to get over and done with. And well, you know, you said it. It is to many people the biggest sim race of the year.
There were 41 splits in 2020 for this main time slot when it first launched itself. Last year came down very slightly, but the time slots were slightly different still, about 40 time slots for people to compete in, so it was a big old number. They really did enjoy their fun. Jose Soria, someone that we did see in the ISO WC 500 last year, finished 33rd and last, but running with the fixed setup that they're using today in an open setup competition, I don't think he was too frustrated with that. So we still have, out of the 33 that took to the green, 24 on the track itself, 22 of whom are on the lead lap. Adriano Pinheiro at the very tail end after pitting 4 laps ago, not likely to be in danger of going a lap down given the pace that he's got with some fresh air, some clean tires. We're 4 wide for the race lead though. Casey Kerwin, Christopher Demera down low. Looking to try and make something happen was Bruno Miranda. He'll slide into line for now. 4 wide with 42 to go. The action's picking up.
Yeah, things are getting a little bit too close for comfort. You don't often see 4 wide and they come out the other end unscathed, but that's what exactly what they've been able to do. Soira towards the, well, he's got himself the race lead at the moment, then Demeritt, then Kerwin in that order, but I get the feeling this will be a swapping around a good couple more times yet before we get ourselves to the to our next set of green flag stops, the final ones potentially for these guys as well. Lots more fighting going on further back to the back. That was Michaels and I believe Frances that were getting relatively close coming off the corner. They've all single filed out now, but yeah, that was the first shot in what potentially is going to be a pretty chaotic situation.
Yeah, first shot across the bow, and it's coming now. DS Francis looking around the outside of Michaels as that's a swap around for 5th spot. The Neki Racing driver cuts down low and really sweeps on through. Malechka's moving forward as well. The SRC Movano 26 car falling backwards now as we head into this pit cycle. 40 to go. The drivers have all done about 28 laps on the run so far. 30, 31, 32. That's what we expect. So maybe add 1 more for the lap that we had under caution. Drivers need to get 7 more laps, though, to be able to make it on 1 more stop. The aggression that I see from that number 4 car, though, Connery, tells me that he doesn't think he can make it to the end with just 1 more pit stop.
Yeah, I think the penny might have dropped there for Malechka, so that's why he's being so aggressive. Now his focus changes, and and becomes more of a, I need to get to the very front of this train, I need to get the track position, and I need to press on because, you know, I might not be able to make it. We do see drivers coming down on towards the pit lane in the very background there. So some drivers now deciding that they have to come down in at 40 laps to go. That won't be, you know, close enough to the end for them to do it from here. So they will have to come down in another time. Soraya keeping Tamara at bay at the moment, but look at this train coming down the back straightaway right now, and they're fanning out once again.
3 wide for second. Malechka from 7th to 1st in the blink of an eye. The Powerslide Motorsports driver hits the front once more. You'd have to assume fuel mileage is out the window from here. Coming to the yard of bricks, it's 38 laps to go. It's the Hornet's Nest that's bubbling up here in Speedway, Indiana.
It absolutely is, and well, Demerit improves it. Look at the run that Demerit had. He had to swing all the way to the outside. I think that was more of an avoiding action in that situation there. Malechka still leads from Demerit from Soria and Kerwood, but that could have been an absolutely massive instant there heading down into the one. The speed differential amongst all the different parties was so huge.
Malechka Demerit at the front again. Soria works his way forward to the inside. He looks on Demerit. Malechka Demerit, the two favorites when we started this race off. Still a long old way to go, but they are back at the front. It's been taken a while for them to find each other once more. The snake's starting to form. This is what Will Vincent was talking about earlier.
And look at Malechka, look at the little wiggle coming down the pit straight. No one following him in doing that, but just maybe a little bit of a sign for things to come. Things have picked up here as Will squeezes past the rear of my chair. This is absolutely crazy stuff at the front of the field. We get the feeling, Will, that fuel saving is out of the window because these guys are going crazy.
It's either that or they've hit a number and they think they can go. Look at that, too wide, too deep then, as they work themselves through the northern end of the racetrack. This is where memories and moments are made. You know what? This is the exciting part of the race. I stood up off my chair for the first time. 37 laps to go of this, the third annual iRacing FIXED Indy 300. We go 3 wide into turn number 1. It's like the M25 on an August bank holiday weekend.
They're all saving fuel, though, I'm pretty sure. Looking at the lap times, that's why the pack is so thick and heavy. We've never seen this before. Soria and Francis hit the front. 36 on the board, 35 coming to the line. The magic number without fuel saving is going to be 32, I think. You get to 32, you pit, you're good from there. The lap times have dropped off. A 43.5 for the leader last time by.
Yeah, 43.5, even I can do a 43.5 around this racetrack. That was a really slow last lap. Let's see what their numbers are as they come past the start-finish line again. A 42.4, 42.3, so they're still about a second off what they really should be here. So they're fuel saving and pack racing at the same time. This is also where calamity can happen, Arjuna, because you're running basically at 85% throttle and you still got to negotiate the quagmire that is this racetrack. 35 to go. Anyone that comes in now, they're just going to have their head in their hand and start praying for a caution.
Yeah, no, I think the amount that we've slowed this pack up really does mean that we are, I think, at the earliest going to see the guys at the front coming down with a couple of laps. Those are the cars at the back. They were trying to catch up with the pack, and they've done so. DeTulio, Sanchez, Busquets, as well as Casabon all pitting. I don't think they're a factor for the win, though.
Yeah, Casabon's like laps down, or was laps down earlier anyway, and they've had to try and go off sequence. The thing is, I remember there have been controversial elements in this race when people have prayed for a caution and it happened. I'm not going to name any drivers, but 2014, 2015, we had a couple of moments just like that in the last 20 laps of the race. Right now, it is the number 15 car of Jose Soria who is leading this race. However, where you really are on track doesn't matter yet. We've got 3 more cars on towards pit road right now. Henry Bennett, Brendan Lichtenberg and Michael Romandis are on pit road. Those 3 will have to carry on doing fuel saving. And what this might mean actually this time, Connery, they'll have to sacrifice a bit of fuel saving to get back into the pack to then save the fuel again.
Yeah, I find it crazy that we've triggered a whole a sequence of fighting, not because the fuel-saving window's out the open, it's because they're fuel-saving that it's caused the whole pack racing. That is absolutely crazy. 33 laps to go. We're starting to get that to that point now where the fuel number is looking a lot more possible. Yet more cars diving their way down on towards the safety of pit lane. A few cars still remaining out there. Tamara, Maleska, Kerwin, this is looking relatively, well, looking better for them the more laps they can go.
Yeah, Demerit is one of those drivers who can fuel save better than almost anyone I know. He learned a lot from Brandon Trainer over the years. Malexa in that number 4 car, Kerwin in the number 1 machine, Van der Sant in the number 10. The 4 drivers you see at the front of your field right now. Christopher Demerit in the number 3 car. Well, he's actually got himself a half-second advantage. At this stage, just before you come on towards pit road, you want that advantage a little bit. You do not want to run over your teammate, as here they come then. 6, 7 cars, Arjuna, all on pit road.
It looks like they managed to get in tidy despite the puffs of smoke. Now, these are the cars that you'd expect will be relatively comfortable from here. They won't have to worry too much about saving. The rest of the cars that boxed, even if they boxed just 2.5 miles ago, will have to be slightly concerned. It's not a big job by any means. It's something to consider. Lebigra and Morales yet to pit as well for the final time. They're back to the front of the field.
To all those people a couple of years ago that said, can't we have a green, white, checkered in an Indy 500? This is the reason why you don't. This is one of my most favorite types of racing in the world, where you have to travel at 210 miles an hour, but you don't want to travel at 215 miles an hour because you're trying to do the strategy and you say with the fuel, look at that, so many cars, and of course they're doing that awkward cutback onto the inside of turn number 2. It is synchronized racing at its finest right now, and we have got 30 laps to go in this race. Connery, it's time to get the hype machine up.
It absolutely is. Well, the drivers started it themselves with the pack racing that they were doing at the very back end of that stint, but yep, this is the final one for a good many of them now. 30 to go. Lebigra and Morales, of course, they are, they're playing in a little bit of an awkward cycle, maybe hoping that a caution can help them out just a little bit later on towards the end of their particular stint. But yeah, it's, this situation, it can't be any more tense.
It isn't. Oh, a couple of cars very close to the wall there. Of course, we say a couple of cars close to the wall, Arjuna. They know exactly what that limit is off turn number 2. They will get as close to it as possible. And then, of course, once this field gets back together, and it will get back together, it's then going to be a case of we will see the Nokia 33 Snake car coming back into play.
Yeah, and crucially, Demerit, Malechka, and Kerwin, the cars that boxed in the final sequence of pit stops, have emerged at the front of this train. They know they're good on fuel, most likely. They're in control of this race. It's the likes of Romanidis and Van der Sant that are dueling hard on the entry into turn 2.
Romanidis right there was going left, he was going right, it was really close to Van der Sant, and actually they went too wide through turn 1 and 2, Connery. And this is the thing. Right now, you've got people praying for a caution. You've got people praying for green flag. I want it to go green. I want to back up and go home in about half an hour's time from now. But this is the thing. Right now, everyone's got their own story. They've got their own tragedy, and it's building up to that crescendo. And for some of these drivers, this is all that work that they did half an hour ago coming to fruition.
And this is exactly what, you brought it up. This is why you have to commit early to these sorts of strategic calls. Otherwise, you would not be able to put yourself in this sort of position like Merit and Maleska have been able to put themselves in with the high percentage chance of getting a very, very good result indeed out of this race. But there's still so many factors that can happen between now and the drop of the checkered flag. We've got so many situations that can arise. Maybe even lap traffic affecting things somewhat at some point. You never quite know until it's over.
So, you know what? I'm doing something that I don't normally do. I'm writing down a prediction. I'm not going to say it.
Oh, come on.
We're going to commentate the next 27 laps of this race. We've got a battle going on then, P12. I know you like predictions. I never do them. Michaels, Pico, Biscuits, Olsen, scrapping it out down in the field. And again, for the next 15 or so laps, Arjuna, you've got to find yourself into position. This is where Indy 500 racing and the kind of pedal train and the Tour de France are exactly the same thing. You've got the next 15 laps to get into position. After that, it's too late.
Yeah, and I think even more significant, I think it's as the tyres wear. By the time you get to lap 20, we heard from the drivers, the swap draft is effectively done. What that means further back in the pack, though, is if people in front of you aren't slipping up, maybe 10 laps into the run, your opportunity starts to run away. As we ride on board with Hugo Olsen, just 10-15 laps ago, he was at the front. He was barged wide by Jose Soria into the wall. He's managed to recover. It doesn't look like there's too much damage on his car. He'll be slightly frustrated down in 14th spot.
He is indeed, as we continue to ride on board with Olsen in that Power Slide Motorsports car. At least it's Power Slide Motorsports, not the 20-name long thing they had one of the years for the iRacing Indianapolis 500. It's just fun to say once. It would not be fun for me to say repeatedly here in 2022 after working this event all day long. But the thing is here, Connery, right now, this is a kind of calm before the storm. We saw the car park chaos. This is controlled chaos now at 215 miles an hour.
Yeah, I guess at some point, maybe nearing towards the end of the race, we'll get to see yet more chaotic action out there, just like we saw at the end of the previous stint, and it will give us potentially a fantastic grandstand finish at the end. That's what I'm hoping for at least, but of course, you know, racing is quite a fickle mistress sometimes. We got Pinheiro, he's headed his way down on towards the pit lane, so he's going to fall back through the order. The scoring island will slowly but steadily start to look a little bit more representative with the race as we see it right now. But then again, a very late race caution, maybe towards the end of Figaro Morales' stints, could really work out in their favor.
Yeah, indeed so. And again, the timing of the caution could well be everything, because as our journalist said a moment ago, put 20 laps on the boots of these cars and actually they start to struggle. You get yourself to that point where you've got 13, 14 laps to go in this race. Some drivers are going to have to make big decisions. That if they get it right will be amazing. If they get it wrong, Arjuna, yeah. But some of them, it will haunt them for a week. While others will haunt them for a year.
You don't get a second opportunity, really. Yes, there are 4 time slots to win and to race here in these iRacing Indy 500s opened and fixed, but the reality is the time slot that everyone cares about is the one that's being broadcast. It's where the big names show up. Someone like Andrew Wood, qualified, I think it was down in 45th. Jesper Orman, 46th. Was worried he wasn't going to make it, and justifiably so. He's going to, justifiably so, excuse me. He's going to be a little frustrated, but again, he'll saddle up and do it all over again in a week's time with an open setup competition. Casey Kerwin looking forward, though. He's trying to get past Malechka for what is on track 5th.
Yeah, and as I say, it's on track right now, but the top 3 will cycle through. In fact, top 3 will cycle through as we get ourselves closer to 20 to go. On board with Casey Kerwin in the X-Set gaming car. Lovely livery, actually. Lovely logo on that, the number 1. Casey Kerwin in 6th place right now. He's got Maleksa just ahead of him on track. The Merit is, of course, technically the one leading this train as we now go on board. The shadow of Robert Maleksa in that Power Slide Motorsports car from the rear as I'll come towards the yard of bricks once again. You're not really going to see those yellow cones unless we have a caution from now on in, unless you're on the number 32, number 29, number 12 car, because they really do have to still come down on pit road one more time, we believe. But it's the Merit, then Robert Meltzer III, Casey Kerwin, Alexander Van der Sant, and Michael Romanis, who really are those drivers, Connery, who are in our top 5. And look at that, it looks like we're back to car park mode.
Yeah, we absolutely are. Malechka headed to Merit in this situation. The swaps are starting to happen at this stage, Arjuna. 20 to go.
20 to go, and I wonder if maybe there is a bit of fuel saving going on. Demerit had been controlling the pace of this leading group. He'll maybe even drop back to 3rd in line as Casey Kerwin looks down low.
Yeah, indeed so. So here we are then, getting towards the final 10% of this race. And, well, we actually have done a blistering pace, 2 hours 18 into this race. Looking on board with Christopher Demerit again. You can see he's using there, Arjuna, those in-car tools to make sure that he's not going to drift up into the grey.
It's all about the front ARB and that weight jacker. To make it simple, a weight jacker changes the balance of the car. Minuses is tight, plus is loose. The front four starting to break away. You'll notice I only said front ARB. The rear ARB disconnected. You can play with it all you want, but it's a placebo effect. Casey Kerwin to the front of the field.
Yeah, basically just hit the button. Someone will pretend it works. It doesn't. As we have there, you're right, Casey up then, and we're starting to get it all coming together. Casey Kerwin in that number 1 Exet Racing car leads the way. Robert Meltzer in the number 4 runs in second. Really on the road. Andrew Rooster when he's coming
yellow!
pit road. Yellow. 19 to go. What did I say, Connery? If you need that pit stop now, this is the choice that could define your year.
Let's see what happens. Oh, just like coming together on the inside there. Sends the car up into the wall. Oh, well, I was going to say narrowly avoided there. I don't think they quite avoided it here, Arjuna. Just take us through it.
Hugo Olsen looks down low. There's a line, but he does drift up the track. Alessandro Bico then slides around. Henry Bennett goes diving for the grass. And I think that's Lemonek that really doesn't get the memo in time. I think Bruno Miranda gets mixed up in the result of that one. It's a chain reaction that gets caused.
Decision time. And this is where, oh my word. Yeah, Lemonek, it's one of these things. Slowing down an IndyCar, that was the biggest incident we've had today. Slowing down an IndyCar, especially as you're trying to go through the corner, very difficult to do. You can let off the gas and hope the car will rotate, but you're not going to be able to slow it down and point and squirt. We've seen already how hard it is, Connery, when they come down to that slow speed for, the pit lane. The question is right now, if you're Casey Kerwin, you could well become a sitting duck.
Yeah, I mean, the situation's obvious. For your actual race leader, it's obvious. Come down towards the pit lane for Andrew Roos. What about everyone else? It seems like the consensus is to remain out there, Arjuna.
I don't think anyone else is going to pit, at least at the front. Remember, Roos was about 20 laps into the run. He had to come down. There was no choice. He was going to run around basically in map 8, the caution map for the rest of this race. Now, from 12th on back, that magic number that Will mentioned earlier, I think we are seeing pit stops. Pedro Sanchez, Albert might have been run into. Didn't see which of the Obsidian cars that had the contact. Soria's there onto pit lane as well. Andrew Wood, Bico, of course. Brophy's up there in the mix of things as well. But they're a little bit too far back. It's 15 cars that stay out there.
Yeah, so you've got, I think, it's 15 cars that stay out on track. Andrew Roos has come back out on track in that number 12 car in 16th place. So Casey Kerwin leads from Robert Meltzer, Christopher Demerit, Alexander Van der Sant, and then Michael Rumdes in 5th place. Realistically, there's still 15 drivers that can win this race. However, the way this race will be decided, realistically, is going to be in those first 10 miles after the green flag. Because the thing is, if you bunch them up together and let them go 2 wide, 3 deep, pull this like Arjuna, then we're going to have a very different race to if you are Kerwin and you try to floor it and get the field spread out a bit more. It makes it a lot more difficult for the likes of Demerit, for Van der Sant, for Romanidis to start to come back on him.
I think what we're looking at is whoever leads with 5 to go is the one in the driver's seat. Until then, it is wide open. These cars are about 15 laps into the run. Yes, the tires are going to be worn, but everyone should be good on fuel. If you're not good on fuel, it's because you've not been saving correctly in this caution. Use the fuel maps. Go into map 8. Just make sure you go back to the green flag running maps when we get back to the action.
Don't forget, once this race is done, Arjuna is going to be taking you through post-race coverage and interviews with your winner and the podium from this, the 3rd annual iRacing Fixed Indianapolis 500-mile race. You can join us next weekend at 6 p.m. on UK time. That's 5 p.m. UTC, live on RaceSpotTV for the 13th running of the iRacing Indianapolis 500, one of the most prestigious sim races in the world, Arjuna. We get to do it all over again. However, First, we have the fun of talking about qualifying that starts on Tuesday. And when we say anything can happen, it can be a thousandth of a second between being in the big dance and having to sit on the outside looking for a split two.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the results of qualifying for this FIXED 500 before we went live. I think it was Demerit Malechka, and I forget there was a third driver whose just name is not coming to my mind. They were tied. It was a 39.518. Now, yes, there's 4 significant digits that would have impacted that. That would have, excuse me, I can remember now. Pinheiro, Demerit, and Malechka. 518 across the board. It's a week-long grind as well, because whatever you have on Tuesday is likely not going to be the setup that you have on Friday once you've seen what the other teams have got at their disposal. You've got to work through the event. You've got to make sure that your car is up to snuff, and that's before we even start talking about race setups.
Yep, precisely. And there's a million ways that you can try and go with that angle as well. Those lights are off on the pace car. If you weren't yet excited, well, now is your time to get excited. We're going to have 15 laps worth of racing to go here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That pace car on towards pit road. Do you go early? Do you go late? You're holding the field up. It's going to bunch it up. You move yourself down. You bring the field to the green flag with 15 laps to go in the 2022 iRacing FIXED Indy 500.
Terrible start from Alexander Van der Sande, but it's not going to cost him too much. If anything, it will let him build the momentum, and when they exit turn 4, the snake's starting to form, Van der Sande will be right on the tail of the leaders. Here comes Malechka.
Yeah, so after all that we've seen him going on the outside line, Connery, all the way through this race, that no longer exists. You're trying to break the toe of all the competition around you.
Yeah, it's pedal to the metal now for all intents and purposes from this point all the way to the checkered flag. Across the line they come. Malechka leads from Kerwin from Demerit as Demerit steps towards the inside, down in towards turn number 1. The swap for the race lead once again. Kerwin towards the pointy end of the field. Did you see Demerit right at the very top of the circuit, trying to get something going up there? I'm not sure whether that's a mistake or if he's running high. He is indeed running high, trying to get the momentum off this corner.
Yep, so Malechka leads by about a tenth of a second over Kerwin. Demerit third, Van der Sande in fourth, and there you see closing up again. And you're going to see Kerwin move themselves up to the top of the field. Malechka down into second. Demerit still there in third. 13 laps to go at the line. And it looks already that you got your top 4 breaking away here. But mighty close between Demerit and Van der Sande. Van der Sande sending it down the inside. Malechka up into first place again there, Arjuna.
Demerit's trying to run the line that we've named after him, that higher line, that higher groove where marbles don't impact your car as much as they might in the real world. It's not working out. Bringing Romanidis, Frances, Michaels all into the thick of things. 2 wide, 2 rows deep. Kerwin back to the point.
Yep, so at this stage, it's about, are you going to get the sequence working in your favor? Kerwin, Malechka, Van der Sande, Demerit, they are 4 cars slowly putting away. Maybe add in the number 5 car as well, because after that, I think that P6 below, they're going to struggle to get back up at this stage. Kerwin leading the way. Van der Sande, they've just switched it around. Van der Sande, though, is coming up through this field, Connery, one by one. He's getting himself into position with 10 laps to go. He's getting himself into that moment.
Yeah, he's been lurking in the shadows for all intents and purposes so far this event, but now the number 10 in second place, hot on the heels of Kerwin. There's a little bit of separation between the top 2 and the 2 behind of Malechka and Demerit. Still continue to try and settle their differences. Demerit running that characteristic high line as we'll get ourselves 11 to go coming across the line. Van der Sande, he gets himself towards the point, and well, there might have been a lead lap log. We'll have to get confirmation.
How many times have we seen the number 10 leading laps at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? Van der Sande as well, he looks as though he feels comfortable out there. He's going to go toe-to-toe with Kerwin, going to go toe-to-toe with Malechka, toe-to-toe with Demerit. I think right now we're down to 4 cars maximum, Arjuna. Demerit, Malechka, Kerwin, Van der Sande, everyone else, barring a caution, they're not going to make it.
I think it's a two-car fight now. I think Rob has really held up Demerit. He might have a chance, but I think it's really between Kerwin and Van der Sant, at least as it sits right now. Malechka might prove to have something, but with the tires going off, it's getting increasingly difficult to pass. If Van der Sant has enough fuel, if he's done the fuel saving, which we know he can do. He's won in Lionheart competition with massive fuel save. 10 to go. Van der Sant's in control.
He is indeed. So Van der Sant leading as we come down to the last 25 miles minus of this race. Kerwin, at this stage, Connor, you might be asking, is he just trying to bide his time, work out where the weaknesses are for Van der Sant? And we say weaknesses. There's not many on some of these top racing sim racing drivers. It's trying to find and exploit any weakness that might exist, though.
Yeah, it's all about that. You got to keep yourself a cool head as well. You got to keep yourself, you got to keep your composure in these situations. It's so easy to get in and over your head, especially when you're getting towards the end of such a crucial race as this. Of course, not going to be necessarily as crucial as the one in just a week's time, but however, it is still a fantastic accolade to have to your name. We've got less than 10 laps to go at this point. Van der Sant, this is the view from his car, looking back at that train of cars giving chase.
If this is ESPN, we'll be showing wives and girlfriends. If this is NBC, we'll probably be on commercial. You know what? We go commercial free here on RaceSpot, and we go action all the way to the end. It's time to stand up, get ourselves ready for what will be another grandstand finish once again. It looks calm. It is anything but right now in this race. And, well, Kerwin, he's actually pulled out a gap now of half a second between himself and Malechka. That every tenth of a second, every hundredth of a second right now, Arjuna, is helping this become that two-horse race you've been talking about.
And I just think that Rob has played the team game here. He knew that maybe his tires weren't going to last. He thought Van der Sant would have a crack at it. Hold up Demerit, put him into the clutches of Romanides, let him fight for the win. Casey Kerwin running out of tire, not out of time, still 7 to go.
Yeah, and we've got ourselves about a 4/10 of a second gap. They are slowly starting to eke out the gaps a little bit. Again, look at the weaving down the back straightaway, Connery. They do not want to give any draft at all, but also they want to give the dirty air at the best time for them to impact another driver.
Yeah, you got to use it as a sort of an offensive weapon in some cases. You can do that with the dirty air, try and force someone to push wide, potentially up into the wall in the worst case for them scenario. As we see the onboard demerit, we've got ourselves 2x2 for race lead, and of course P number 3 as well. Van der Sant able to hold on to the race lead for now. Kerwin still behind. Demerit and Malechka, well, they're trying to sort out the differences between themselves. They might just be losing track of a race win, though.
Yellow watch. A yellow right now would mean we'd have about 2 laps to go. Having a look then down to the inside, Kerwin for the race lead over Van der Sant. And that means that we've got a new leader. Look at that, though. Van der Sant trying to come back on the offensive already out of turn number 4, Arjuna.
Look at the defense from Casey Kerwin, though. He's going to make Van der Sant fight for this one. And the white and purple car looks down low. He'll sweep back to the front now. These two have to be careful. The more they squabble, guess who gets brought back into the picture? Christopher Demerit.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a 3-horse battle. Malechka, who was my pick, by the way, has fallen down into 4th place. So it looks like he has faded for the day. Demerit is still there on the coattails. With 5 laps to go, Van der Sant and Kerwin cannot afford to change positions every lap. Otherwise, Demerit will make it a 3-horse race. And I think that Kerwin just realised that, Connery, as they worked themselves with 4 to go, he realised, let me do at least 1 more lap waiting, and then we go on an attack.
Yeah, he wants to have this as a 1v1. He doesn't want a third party. He doesn't want the pressure from behind. That Demerit is certainly so capable of piling onto the back of that number 1 car. He might not necessarily have a choice in it. It's Demerit is making some very good progress right now. 4 to go at this point. Well, make it 3.5 to go. Van der Sant is still at the pointy end, still trying to control this race from the very front of the field. When and where does Kerwin strike, though?
Yeah, and Arjuna, that is going to be the key question, because you don't want to leave it till the last lap. It can be so difficult to make it on the last lap, but you could try if you're a good defensive driver. Do it with 2 to go, play ultra defense, force them to go around the long way. There's a lot to happen here, and we've only got 7 miles of racing to go.
If you are Van der Sant, you have got to lead from here. The caution flies, the race is over. It's as simple as that. You use the track, you snake back and forth on the straight, you maximize the entry. That's what happened a couple of laps ago, as Kerwin had a look to the inside. He was trying to poke, but Van der Sant swept all the way down, fed the dirty air to that number 1 car. It meant Casey Kerwin slid backwards further and further to Chris DeMerit. 2 laps to go, 5 miles left in the third iRacing Fixed 500.
Yep, so we've got a minute and a half pretty much remaining in this race. It is currently the number 10 car of Van der Sant leading by 0.2 of a second over Casey Kerwin in the number 1 car. Christopher DeMerit currently runs himself in 3rd place, and you got your top 3 drivers within 1 second of each other. Robert Malaxa is just about within a second. However, it looks as though his chances of winning this race have faded. Through turn number 4 to take the white flag. 2.5 miles of racing to go in the 3rd annual iRacing Indy FIXED 500, and down to the inside. Kerwin goes immediately down in turn number 1, but Van der Sant will stay alongside as they work through turn number 2. It could be a drag race, and Van der Sant has it. Now, defensive driving to the left, defensive driving to the right, trying to stop Kerwin from going down to the inside, but he can't stop him. Kerwin's down to the inside in turn number 3. Does Van der Sant have anything left as they come out of turn number 4? Once again, a photo finish here at Indianapolis, but it looks as though for the moment it's going to be Kerwin. Casey Kerwin wins the 3rd annual iRacing FIXED Indianapolis 500 by exactly 1/10 of a second over Alexander Van der Sant. Christopher DeMerit comes home in 3rd place, Robert Malaxa in 4th, and Michael Romanis comes home in P number 5. But Casey Kerwin, he went offensive, he held on to the charge, Connery. He made it work by exactly 1/10 of a second.
And it was a move that was timed to perfection as well. Didn't necessarily give Van der Sant even really a chance to try and respond to it. Kerwin, what a fantastically run race he was able to manage here. Credit to all of the top 4. They gave us a fantastic run to the very end. But the man of the moment, of course, is Casey Kerwin, Arjuna.
And from podium last time to victor this time around, he'll burn it down, he'll drink the milk. It's a great drive from the XF driver. Timed it to perfection. Well, I thought if you let it the white, you win. It was the move into turn 3 that got it done.
And it was all about precision racing. It was not about forcing yourself down and going into a move where you either win or you end up crashing. It was one of those moves where he had the chance to come back from it, and come back from it he did. We had side-by-side in turn number 1. We had side-by-side through turn number 2. We had the snaking. We had the final move. Casey Kerwin bites the bullet and claims victory in the 2022 iRacing FIXED Indianapolis 500. What's going to happen, folks, is we're going to run through your final race results right now, and then Arjuna will take us through post-race coverage. So, Casey Kerwin for XSET Gaming claims victory over Powerslide Motorsports Alexander Van der Sant by exactly 1/10 of a second. Team i5G's Christopher DeMerit comes home in 3rd place with Powerslide Motorsports Robert Malaxa in P number 4. Williams Esports Michael Romanis comes home in P number 5. 5 drivers within 2 seconds at the end. You then have Pablo Diaz-Frantes in P number 6. Then you've got Sam Michaels in P7, Fernando Antonio Bisquet in 8th place, Hugo Olsen 9th, and Henry Bennett rounds out your top 10. Fastest lap, look at that. Fabian Cazuan, lap number 194 at 40.518. Alexander Ditulia in 11th place, Brandon Lichtenberg in 12th, Florian Labige in 13th, Jose Soria in 14th, Alexander Bico in 15th, Pedro Sanchez Albert in 16th, Andrew Ruse, Jason Brophy, Adriano Pianero, and Andrew Wood round out your top 20. The rest of the results are coming up on your screen. We basically ended up with 20 drivers really there in the mix at the end. Congratulations to everyone who finished the race. And at this point, we want to say thank you very much to everyone who's been a part of us in Milton Keynes here today. We're going to wrap up our coverage from Simply Race in Milton Keynes. It's been a great race. Arjuna, post-race coverage, take it away.
What a race. The third annual iRacing Fixed 500 ended in fireworks once more, and it's Casey Kerwin moving himself up from third 12 months ago to victory this time around. The 200 laps saw about 20 drivers, as Will mentioned, make it to the very end. If this is what we're in for in a week's time, join us for the 13th iRacing Indianapolis 500 as we see if anyone can stop the king of the bricks, Brandon Traino. And we'll wait for Victory Lane to be populated. Casey, do we have a copy with you?
I do, yes.
So, Casey, what a finish that was. I mean, were you a bit nervous coming to the white flag there? Did you think you had timed it right? It took until turn 3 to be able to get alongside far enough to work your way past.
Yeah, it was, I didn't really know, I didn't really have any timing. It just worked out that way. It was just if I could put a corner together to get close, or 2 corners together to get close on the straightaway. And once we hit like 4 to go, it started getting really tight, and I just started getting really aggressive with like the rear bar and the weight jacker, and yeah, it was tough to predict. Like we're just kind of playing. Alex was trying to guess, you know, which way I was going to go into the corner and trying to air block me, and then thankfully I would, if I could get my left front into air beneath him first in 3 and 4, I could get good exits, and that's what I got there coming to the white. And yeah, he gave me the bottom into 1, and I was still, you know, pretty aggressive on weight jacker and all that, and I thought I was crashing off of 1 or out of 1, and then thankfully I still got a good run out of 2 behind him, got draft, and was able to just barely get ahead, and then was just far enough ahead into 3. I just pretty much hoped that he was going to try, and I waited to turn in just a smidge to see if he would go to the bottom, and he did, and thankfully it was just enough to kill his momentum in dirty air where he couldn't get to me at the line. But yeah, that race was insane. It was the whole last 15 laps since the restart was just back and forth of battling. I don't know if I breathed at all, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, first Indy 500 win for me in the top split race, which is really cool.
I love the cerebral way which you described what went on in those final stages. I mean, from third on the podium last year to first this time, we saw you win a Monday night race at Long Beach as well. Are we going to see you do more of these IndyCar things? Because it turns out you're quite good at it.
Yeah, maybe. I really do enjoy the car every time I've driven it. Obviously, Long Beach is my favorite track, so I had to get in a race there. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. The car's a lot of fun. It's just obviously I'm pretty busy with other things sometimes. Just get a little burnout. Can't really get to everything, right? So yeah, hopefully I might be able to be around. I know, like, I'm a big street course person, so like maybe Detroit or something like that. I'll try and go run a race. But yeah, like I said, it was a lot of fun. The racing was insane there at the end, and yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed it.
We certainly did. Congrats, Casey. Go, and I got to ask you one more question. What's on the menu? What type of milk are you drinking to celebrate this one?
Whatever's in the fridge, I gotta go grab it and drink it on stream. So, but yeah, it's cool to win. We'll celebrate for sure. Clearly, you didn't plan out the victory, that's for sure. Enjoy this one, Casey. Hope to talk to you soon again. All right, see you. Thank you. And from the top step of the podium, we talked to a man who drove his way up through the field. Started back in 25th, up to 2nd, and until the final lap, I thought he was the one to beat. Alexander Van der Sant, talk to us about the emotions. What are you feeling right now? A great race for you. I don't think there's much you should be disappointed about.
Yeah, well, I mean, except not winning. But man, that was a blast. I honestly, it was a sloppy race. Like I forgot to pit the first green flag stop, so somehow got away with that. Then missed my box for like the last caution stop, and just lost positions there. But we knew we'd have an opportunity once the 2 people that stayed out would pit, and Rob and I took full advantage of that to get up front, and then just we went for it once it went green. Congrats to Casey for getting me at the end. I guess he was just biding his time, but man, there was, yeah, that's gonna hurt for a while.
Well, I guess one good thing or bad thing, depending on how you look at it, is you'll dust yourself off, and now qualifying starts tomorrow or I guess on Monday evening for the iRacing Open 500. Your first time running with Powerslide Motorsports. What can you carry forward from this race into next week's event?
Yeah, I guess just confidence that I know I'll be able to run well. I've done a really good job in the last, well, now 3 Indy 500s I've done in the last 4 weeks. So it's just a lot of momentum this month, which is awesome. Way better than last year. So we'll have I'll hopefully be a bit more comfortable in qualifying since it's less down to driving, so then I can focus on the race hopefully I get a better track position at the start, and it makes the day a little easier, and so I can focus more for the end next time.
I gotta ask you, with so many Indy 500s, are you not getting burnt out with this track? I mean, surely
Never.
After next week you are going to want a bit of a break.
I'll want a break, but I mean, Indy is Indy. There's just something special about this car and this track, and it's always going to be a good race here.
I'll let you go, Alex. We'll see you next week. I'm sure qualifying is going to be an experience for you, the first time on grind with the open setup stuff. We'll see how it goes. We hope to see you on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks, Arjuna.
Alexander van der Sant second in a great drive from him. And then the man that started on pole position, was it really a pole position? Well, we'll ask him. Christopher Demerit joins us now. Chris, I mean, it was a good race, but unfortunately, I think the way the cautions played out, the way that the strategy played out, didn't really go in your favor.
No, I was driving to it. I was modifying everything as I was going. I was actually okay with the fuel save at the end. I knew that what was going to happen on that last restart if we had a caution was if I got third or back, you're basically stuck there. So I was trying so hard to be second car in line, and the caution came out at the wrong time, and I got stuck in third. And then kind of what I was afraid of happened. I kind of got stuck there, and we did the top 2 to scrap a bit more than they did, but I mean, up until then, I was feeling pretty good about things. But we still ran at the front, put that RAG machine up at the lead for a while.
Oh, I did want to ask you about that. What's the experience been working with RAG? Of course, you're the one bringing the experience to the table and getting them to a pretty good showing. We saw a number of their cars up there towards the front. Unfortunately, none of them finished inside the top 10, but the pace definitely was there for them as well as for you.
Yeah, definitely. They did pretty well in qualifying. I was helping them out. I mean, Arjuna, you know how it is for your qualifying week. You know, you have 5 nights of trying to get the laps down, and every day you think you have a good enough one to get in the show, and then you check the results a few hours later, and a bunch of people have jumped up. So it's always a chaotic week, and it was fun kind of getting them up to speed with things. It was a cool opportunity for them.
So next week though, that's where the focus is, right? I mean, you'd like Brandon Traynor to win 4 in a row, but I've got to assume as well you'd like to check that off the bucket list and win again at the Brickyard.
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, unfortunately, I won't be home for the race.
Oh,
so
no.
Yeah, it's kind of out already, but no, we've all the FOG guys have been working super hard. Honestly, like all the setup practice that we did really prepared me for this race, because it's kind of Indy, it's the same lines, it's the same kind of feeling of the car. So I mean, even though I'm not really going for the open race, I still feel prepared for it, and I'm sure they'll put on a good showing.
Well, you'll be cheering on your teammates, at least from the sidelines. Great run today, Chris. I mean, such a competitive race. A close finish once more. 4/10, excuse me, splitting top 3. We won't see you in a week's time, but we wish you best of luck, and we wish the team the best of luck for what's coming up.
Yeah, thanks, Arjuna.
That wraps up our post-race coverage. What a race it was. 200 laps, just 4 or 5 cautions. It flew on by. And we thank those at Simply Race and VCO for helping us do this in person as well. For those watching on in Milton Keynes, they were treated to a spectacle. Will Vincent, Connery Maddock have already waved you goodbye. It is just Arjuna Kankipati saying, we will see you in a week's time. The 13th running of the iRacing Indianapolis 500 will see more history on the line. 3 years, 3 winners in this iRacing Fixed 500, but Brandon Traynor looks to make it 4 in a row as we head back to Speedway, Indiana this coming weekend. Join us on Friday for a special qualifying end-of-week preview before Saturday, 5 p.m. UTC. Myself, Arjuna Kankipati, alongside Will Vincent and Lewis McLeod, will be there to take you through all the action. For now, though, we bid you farewell. It's the month of May, it's upon us, it's the most special time of year. We'll be back for that inaugural, or rather the 13th of the iRacing Indianapolis 500. This race, though, the fixed 500, since its inception, has delivered the action. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, we thank you for joining us and we bid you farewell. Speedway Indiana, where better to be in the month of May?